The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 7 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Timebomb Trading, the distributors for Dragon 32, Stance, and Sandbox, plus much more here in Canada, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Wired Snowboards builds handmade custom boards in my hometown of Vancouver, BC, 10 minutes away from my house. I've been riding my Directive 159 with the Valley Elephant graphic during my trip to Colorado and could not be happier with the performance on this Rocky Mountain snow. Wired boards are durable because they're built properly and they're designed by veteran pro Rob Dow, so they ride like a dream. Wired team rider and absolute legend Devin Walsh just did a raffle for a priceless Forum Wildcat board, plus his new pro model from Wired with a pair of Wildcat Now bindings to raise money for a friend of his that's going through a challenging time with his family. Congratulations to the winner, Rob Harrison. I imagine you're going to be getting a lot of DMs. Listeners, go to your local shop and demand that they carry Wired snowboards or design a custom Wired board at wiredsnowboards.com. You'll be glad that you did. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, New Greens, GoPro, and Volcom. Thanks to everyone who supports the show. Emanuel Krebs is a legendary Canadian snowboarder who, as you'll hear, cut his teeth doing just about everything for Limited Snowboards. Emanuel was a fierce competitor and a savvy businessman whose snowboard journey started, like many of us, with skateboarding. He's raising a 12-year-old daughter who's just about the age he was when he got his first skateboard.
Yeah, that's about right. Interestingly enough, she's skateboarded since she's been very little, just because there are skateboards around the house.
Right.
But she never really got into it until this summer.
Oh, cool.
And she got into it because of the Olympics.
No way.
Yeah, and so we watched all the skateboarding, like the girls at the Olympics, and she got so into it that she's actually like trying to learn Portuguese because she likes all the Brazilian girls that skateboard, and she's learning Portuguese. And so, we've been going out and skateboarding together, not so much recently because it's been raining so much.
Oh my God.
But when it's dry.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty cool. Like, she's kind of rekindled that. Like, I haven't been skateboarding that much recently. But, And I got my first skateboard, I got my first skateboard in a garage sale. My dad's American, and my mom's Canadian. And so my grandparents lived just upstate New York, so about an hour north. Well, not really upstate, but upstate from the city.
Yeah.
An hour north of New York City. And I got my first skateboard in a garage sale, just around my grandparents' place. But that's like just sitting down and kind of going down the driveway.
Was it like a penny board?
Yeah,
or whatever?
exactly.
Yeah, or
exactly.
we used to call them banana boards.
Yeah, but it might have even been like clay wheels,
really,
like old shitty skateboard. But yeah,
awesome.
I got my first legit skateboard. Maybe I would say probably 13, more than 12. Yeah, Dwayne Peters.
Ooh.
Dwayne Peters Santa Cruz
Wow.
skateboard. Yeah.
How wide of a board was it? Was it still?
That's like pre-nose boards didn't have
But there was a point I can remember Dwayne Peters being like a really big boat.
Yeah, it's the classic one with the diagonal stripes.
Yes.
It's the green and the one I had I think it was like green and white, but it's the classic stripes. And yeah, it was probably I don't know, kind of egg shaped a little bit, probably 9 inches.
Yeah.
But that was my first deck, my first legit deck.
And so would you skate that to school and stuff? Was it kind of that type of situation? What was it like in Quebec City for skateboarding?
Yeah, there was not a lot going on. So this is probably, so this was 85 or 86.
Yeah.
And my first memory, I wouldn't skate to school. My first memory is in 1984 in Quebec. There was this huge festival where boats took off from Saint-Malo in France, historical boats, the same one that replicas that were used.
Wow.
Replicas of the boats of the first people that came to Quebec with. And they sailed across the ocean, and there was this big festival in Quebec. And anyhow, they built these kind of kiddie pools.
Yeah.
And a year after that, like nobody was using them, and that was like our first kind of skate park. It was
Rad.
like, yeah, like it had like all these like weird little kinky trannies, and like so we'd go and yeah, we'd just skate down to Le Vieux-Port, which is like the old port in Quebec, and yeah, and just skateboard there. But there wasn't a big scene at that time.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not
Like
yet.
like 10, 20 kids kind of thing.
Yeah, like the usual suspects, right? Like you'd always bump into the same dudes, and then like I met a few old timers that were from like the previous era,
Yeah.
right? And some of those guys like became like big influences for me, like because I've always enjoyed learning about the history, right?
Right.
Like the history of skateboarding, or the same for snowboarding when I got into that. And just like I have so much respect for the people that came before us, right? Like it's always kind of standing on the shoulder of giants,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I got a Dwayne Peters board from the Clubhouse, which was Jay Bomber's setup. He had a little shop in there.
Sick.
And it was a retro reissue
Okay.
of like a leopard print kind of, like,
Yeah.
and it was one of those boards. When I moved out here, I went to the wide boards that Skull Skates was producing.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun board, but it did have a bit of a double kick on it. And
Yeah,
I think,
that's like a later reissue.
yeah,
think.
I wanted to kind of throw back, but it was kind of a strategy to be like, look, I'm not doing what's happening here.
Yeah.
Street skating in Vancouver in the early 90s was
Yeah.
incredible. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
spots were good. The people that were here
Yeah.
were insane. And even what was going on
Rick
at the
Howard's
Clubhouse.
part in the Blockhead video
Oh
is
my
still one of
God.
my favorite parts, and
Yeah.
it's all filmed downtown here, right?
Yeah.
Like that's such a sick part. That was like, yeah, like that's like pre like the new place, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of good stuff then.
Yeah.
That was a sick part.
Yeah, I mean, so much shit was going down in Vancouver at that time. I think that would have been my very first, like, I quit skateboarding moment, was looking around and being like, I just cannot keep up with what's going on here
Yeah,
at all.
that's why I started snowboarding.
Yeah, same here, basically. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so where are you at? Okay, so I'd like to know where that Dwayne Peters board came from. Like, was there a shop or something that had a couple
So
of things?
there was like this this little shop in Quebec City that had like a little like it was a outdoors sport,
Yeah.
kind of European influence, like windsurfing.
Sure.
And they'd sell like some winter like soft goods from like European brands, and they had like a little corner where they had a few skateboards. It was called La Boutique Suisse, which is just kind of like the Swiss shop basically.
Rad.
So that's where I bought my first board. But then my second board, I went to Montreal to get it, and it was
Rad.
a Klaus Krabke.
Ooh.
And
Ripping through the
clock.
Yeah.
That Santa Cruz one, and that was at Footloose, which was a legit skateboard shop. And like that other shop was just like they just had a few boards in the corner.
Yep.
But yeah, I went down to Montreal to get my second board at
Yeah.
Footloose.
Yeah, sick.
Footloose is that's pretty well known, right? Like for like you speak to anyone that is from like Montreal, like during those times. Yeah.
They had lots of boards on the wall.
Yeah, that was like, it was super, super legit. skate
And that's
shop,
the
yeah.
Powell era as well, probably.
No,
at that time?
that's
just before.
prior. The Powell era is when I had my shop, so this is way before, or a few years before.
So how do you start this shop?
Yeah.
Like,
So there's no shop in Quebec, and there's this guy from Montreal. He had a sporting goods store, but that sold skateboards also. It was called West Island Sports.
mm-hmm.
And he recognized that there was no shop in Quebec. So he decided to come and open a shop in Quebec. And he met, I don't know how he connected, but he connected with my friend Mike's mom.
Wow.
And she ran the shop for him. So he opened like in the spring, let's call it, I don't know, let's say April. And Mike's mom ran the shop, and there was basically 3 employees, Mike, his brother Dave, and myself.
Yeah.
And that summer, Mike and I went and spent the summer in California to skate.
Oh, shit.
And spending the whole summer in California, like I just kind of came to the realization like how important to a scene skate shop is, right? Like that's where like you all go connect before going out to skate, and it's kind of like the lung, right, of a skate scene. And anyhow, so when we came back from California, the guy from West Island Sports, like at that point, Mike's mom had stopped managing the shop. He had tried to find like a manager, but being in Montreal, he just realized like it was too hard for him to have a business in Quebec and in Montreal. So I told him like, hey, I'll buy the shop off of you. And I was about to go into my last year of high school, so it was kind of I'm not too sure what I was thinking, but yeah. So I took over the shop from him basically.
When you're like 16 years old.
Yeah, I was 15.
Okay,
yeah,
hold on.
15.
15 years old, you're going to California. Do parents go with you?
No, so my buddy Mike, his aunt worked for Air Canada out of LAX. Wow. And she was like, you can come and crash my couch in Santa Monica. So
Sick.
yeah, so every day we'd wake up, we just crashed on our couch. Every day we'd wake up, go down to the boardwalk, skate over to Venice, and just skate Venice, skate the walls, the curbs every day.
That classic.
Yeah, so just me and Mike.
Oh, wow.
And if you want to get into that, I have a lot of good stories. Like,
yeah, who would you have met down there?
Skated with Christian Asoy, skated with Jay Adams, skated with Jesse Martinez.
Oh my God.
A bunch of the Z Boys at the time, which were kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of crazy good stories.
That's insane for a
Yeah.
kid from Canada, anywhere in Canada.
Yeah.
Holy
I remember when we, so I'll tell you the Christian Asoy story. Well, I can
Yeah.
tell you all the stories, but the Christian Asoy story is pretty funny. So we're skating down at the walls in Venice, and we meet this guy, Dale, and he's skating. He's like, do you guys skate vert? And Mike and I are like, well, yeah, we can. We're not good, but
Yeah.
we can,
Sure.
skate a ramp.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got a vert ramp in my backyard. Do you guys want to come skate? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we go skate his backyard, and it's the first time I'm skating pool coping. He has one side with full legit pool coping, which like on a full vert ramp was intimidating at the time, right? So anyway, so we're skating, and in between sessions, I'm sitting on the deck, and I hear a voice. Like someone walks into the yard, like, "Hey guys, like, do you mind if we skate?" And I turn down, and it's Sergio Ventura.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "Oh well, it's not my ramp. Like, ask this guy." And so they asked Dale, and he's like, "Hey, like, I don't know how they saw the ramp or they heard about it." Anyways, so the whole like Hosoi team, well, not the whole, but a bunch of them show up, and Christian's there. So I'm on the deck. Christian Hosoi is like crushing this ramp. Like I remember him, like I was at the corner of the deck, and he's doing like alley-oop lean airs at the edge of the ramp, re-entering like, I don't know, it felt like 6 to 8 inches from the side. Just like gnarly. And this is like Hosoi style, like, like the flailing t-shirt tucked in the pants, like the cut off like tank top. He's like overhead alley-oop lean airs. Anyways. And he's skating these Chuck Taylors. And he ripped the sole rips off one of his Chuck Taylors. And so he starts skating barefoot. And there's a photographer there, right? Like, and then he starts like doing these gnarly like layback Smith grinds on the pool coping barefoot.
Oh wow!
And like we're just like mind blown.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we get back to Quebec City at the end of the summer, and all of our buddies are like, "How was your trip?" And we're telling them this story, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, right.
Of course.
No way, right? No one believes us." And then that fall, there was I think it was a spread, but anyway, the photo came out in Thrasher of Hosoi doing the layback Smith grind on pool coping, barefoot, and there we are in the background on the other, like on the other deck.
So
and then
sick.
we're like, "See, we told you, we weren't lying. It's real."
That's so rad.
So like, yeah, a lot of good stories.
Yeah, you came back with that energy, like you're saying. You know that the skate
Yeah,
shop
like
is
the
the
skate shop
beating
had it
heart
to
or
happen.
the lungs of
Yeah.
the
We
of the
needed a
scene.
legit.
Yeah.
We needed a legit.
And the one that's there is flailing, so you're like, I'll just take it over.
I'll take it over. So yeah, took it over, and I still remember like dealing with the financing at the bank. Like first week that I was going back into high school, and I had told myself like every year I'd do spring training camp for the football team at my high school.
Yeah.
But then like skateboarding would get in the way and I always quit.
Nice.
But then it was like my last year of high school and I was like, okay, this year, like I'm going to play just so I can like have that experience like once. And the week before I broke my wrist and my ankle.
Oh, shit.
So first week of high school, I remember I had 2 casts on. Well, my ankle wasn't broken, but it was a bad enough sprain that because I had a broken wrist, I couldn't have crutches. So they put a cast on, right?
Oh, wow.
So I remember first week of high school, I'm like, okay, no football, whatever. But I'm working with the bank, doing the financing and like figuring out like how I'm going to do all like purchasing with the distributors for the shop. And yeah, so yeah, that was my last year of high school. That's how that started.
That's unbelievable that you could be. I mean, it doesn't take more than high school math to run a skate shop, right? Like, you know, the board prices, you know what they're supposed to be. And you just take the money, you put it in the till, and then you order more boards and you pay from the bank the boards that you're getting.
At the time, though, the distributors, it wasn't all set up like it is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like cold calling like a lot of manufacturers in California.
Oh, wow.
To try to buy direct.
So you're importing stuff.
I'm trying to, right?
Yeah,
Because it was SNJ Sales, which did like basically before in Canada, SNJ did East Coast and Ultimate did West Coast.
Right.
And then kind of Ultimate expanded. But it was hard, right? Like they didn't have that much stock. And so I started buying like Santa Cruz direct, Indy direct, like a bunch of stuff direct. And I was always like cold calling and like down the road, like that paid off. Cause I remember like, for instance, like, I don't know, the one thing that comes to mind, like when drawers started, right? Like I was able to get drawers like before anyone because like I was getting it direct from those guys, right? And I think that was like, if my memory serves me correct, it was like Danny's brother. So it was like Damon Way,
right?
That started that.
Yeah.
And like I was talking to Damon and it was just like, hey, like let's shop in Quebec. Like I want to get your stuff. Anyways.
That's so sick.
So yeah, there was a lot of like just trying to get stuff direct. And like, I remember like even just like getting enough grip tape, like,
right.
Like what kind of skate shop are you if you run out of grip tape, right?
Totally.
But just making sure you're getting enough. And so, yeah, it was an eye opener for sure. Like at the same time as I'm doing high school.
Yeah. So how are you working the shop? You go into school all day and then the shop opens from 4 till
exactly. I do like 4 to 7 and then weekends. But pretty quick, like I realized like I wasn't advanced program in a private school. I was on a scholarship in that school. And so I did well in school, but I realized like, I was going to suffer, right? Like my schooling was going to suffer. So pretty quick into it, like my mom had dislocated her shoulder the year of injuries, right? And she couldn't do her job at that point. So I asked her like, hey, what do you think of maybe becoming my partner for a little bit, like at least till I get done with high school, you know? And so she became my partner and she was my partner for the 2.5 first years.
Sweet.
Yeah. So she helped a lot, actually. She's the one that was a big driving force in moving the skate shop to the indoor skate park. Because about 2 years in, like I had my skate shop, the skate shop was pretty small, like just a regular little skate shop. But a few years in, like we expanded that to a 10,000 square foot indoor skate park.
That's the story I want to hear too.
Yeah.
Like, because
that was good.
If memory serves, I mean, I'll tell you, from my experience in the 80s with the small skate shop in Sudbury, you know, it would grow. It grew, and then it was huge, and then, you know, they moved downtown to better real estate. Like, but they would organize little things, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd go and you'd skate and you'd say, hey, City Hall, whatever that meant, you know, skating at City Hall and saying, hey, we're not going away. We need a park.
Yeah.
Like you haven't provided anything
We
for
tried
us.
that. Like
Yeah.
we tried so much with the city, and it got to the point where, you know, it's Quebec City, and like same type of winters as Sudbury pretty much,
The
right?
worst. Yeah.
But you're really only skateboarding like 5 months out of the year, right? And if you're
Yeah.
really hardcore, like, you know, and you go to underground parking lots, like in the winter, like when it's
Right.
really cold, you can skate a bit more, but like not to the point where it makes a skate shop a sustainable business throughout the winter, right?
Got you.
So we tried everything we could with the city, and at some point, like it just wasn't moving fast enough, and we realized like, okay, we need to do this ourselves. Like the only way we're going to be able to give the opportunity for everyone to skate year round is if we do it ourselves.
Right.
And to me, like it was 50-50, like motivated by I want to place the skate myself, and the other 50, like skateboarding at that point had already given me a lot, and I just wanted to give back. You know,
Cool.
and so we connected with there's a few people from Ontario that helped us a lot in the first steps. So Perry Gladstone, who is running Fish Lips at the
Rad.
time, and he had an indoor skate park
Yep.
in Toronto. So we met up with SNJ, actually connected us with him.
Cool.
And that's how like I became involved with him and Limited afterwards. But
Of course.
so we connected with Perry, and then M&J. Do you remember that skate park in Scarborough? So it was an indoor skate park in Scarborough. So that was pretty cool. Like before I had my park, like went to visit with him for a weekend. Actually, like this is in the H Street days, so there was an H Street demo.
Rad.
And while the guys were warming up, like it was me and his son, MJ, like the guy that owned the park. It was just the two of us skating with the full H Street crew. So I got to session like a mini ramp with Matt Hensley, and that was pretty sick.
That is amazing.
He's pretty incredible.
Would Salaz have been on that as well? He was kind of a peripheral.
he wasn't
H
on that
Street skater.
tour.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have photos of like Matt Hensley with my mom, and Matt's got like the green hair, and
Come on.
yeah, so pretty cool photos,
Yeah.
like family heirlooms.
That's just amazing, dude.
But yeah, so they gave us a lot of good advice, right? Like and it gave us a good understanding, and we came back to Quebec and found a spot. You know, like the biggest thing at that time was really ceiling height, because we wanted, it's at the time of skateboarding where you kind of needed a vert ramp, right?
Yeah.
Like in hindsight, I probably could have found something better and just done like smaller stuff and just street course.
Yeah.
But it was at a time where we needed a vert ramp. So the ceiling height was tricky to find a spot. But yeah, found the spot, dropped several tens of thousands of dollars cash in wood.
That's that part was the part that I've been telling everybody, is that like, because as a 16-year-old kid, if I had a business, I think I'd probably be spending every penny of profit on cool new gear and clothes and things. But it sounded like
no, we like, it was the shop was doing well, right? Like I was able to buy my first car brand new cash at the dealership. Like that's pretty nice, right? Like
that's
to be able to
super
do
good.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, like of course, like once we decided we wanted to do the skate shop, then you kind of you project your cash flow accordingly, right? And we kind of spec'd it out, and yeah, so I was probably like, this is right before I turned 18 when we bought all the wood, probably.
Wow.
So yeah, it was between like 30-40 grand just of wood.
And you bought it for cash. You had that kind of money in the account, which that's for a kid to have that access.
Well, I mean, it's the
is
business,
epic.
right? Like, so,
Sure.
But yeah. And me and my buddy, the two of us, built the whole park, just the two of us.
Any ramp plans? Did you?
So my friend Jean-Sébastien Bernier, with whom I built the whole park, we had already built a few ramps together. Like he had a vert ramp in his backyard.
Cool.
Like at that point, like I'd been building backyard ramps for for a minute already, right?
Yeah.
And so so we had an idea. We had an idea of what we did, and so we built the whole park, the two of us. And this guy, Jean-Seb, he's a vert skater. He's a really good vert skater, actually. Like, he's the first guy I ever saw learn a McTwist, like, live.
Wow.
Like, he used to skate with Max Dufour a lot. And, PLG when he would come down, and, like, Barry and Tisson. But Jean-Sébastien was a super vert skater, and that was his thing. Like, he didn't really do anything else. So this is why I'm bringing this up, because there's a crazy story. Because this was 91, and in the middle of building our whole skate park, I took off to the lake, to Lake Louise, because I started snowboarding throughout this.
Yeah.
And flew to Lake Louise in 1991 for the Canadian Nationals.
Brad.
And left Jean-Seb alone, and he's like, screw you, like, I want my vert ramp. And he built the vert ramp. Like, he was able to lift the top transition on the lower transition to build a vert. He did that on his own.
No way.
It's ridiculous. I came back, and, like, he had built the vert ramp. I was like, that is crazy. And he's like, I just had to skate it, man. Like he just wanted to skate it so bad. Jean-Seb, he actually, I think that's what he still does now. He started a business where he builds ramps now, and
Epic.
he builds ramps for municipalities in Quebec.
That's so dope.
Yeah. So it was a good partner to have as someone to build ramps. And our deal was that I must have paid him, but the deal for him to help me was like he had access to the park when he wanted to.
Sick.
Because he wanted a vert ramp. And
like
it was
a key.
Yeah, he
having
had the
a key to a park is.
Yeah, so like he could come and skate the vert ramp when he wanted, and that's how the park got put together. And so we had 6 different ramps, like some with spines, some with hips, and different sizes, some with extensions, and then with the vert ramp as well.
So does that build up this, like, a community of skateboarders in Quebec City that, funds the business? Like, do you...
At that point, before the park, like the scene around the shop had gone really, really good.
Cool.
Like super good. Like people would always meet up at the shop, like before, like going out to street skate. It was really, really good. Like I've made so many lifelong friends, just people like just showing up at the shop, right? Like through the shop.
Right.
And so at that point, like, and we would organize, like I was like, the shop, we were organizing a lot of street contests, trying to galvanize the scene. So at that point it was a pretty healthy scene. Yeah, for sure. And then the park was basically just another outlet, right? Like basically in the winter, where people could connect and,
Did it prosper? I mean, I know how parks are.
Yeah,
like,
you don't make like it. If you break even at best, if you break even at best, you're fine. So no, the park didn't make any money. Like,
and then the neighborhood, people complaining about stuff or anything like that, or
it was a semi-industrial area where we were able to find the spot. So it wasn't great for I wasn't getting any walk-in business. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to come to my shop, you had to know where it was.
Yeah.
But no, neighbors. Yeah, that was fine. It was a pretty seedy neighborhood anyway. So
sure.
If anything, we improved the neighborhood type of thing. But the skate park, you never, I don't think anyone's ever recouped their money from investing in a skate park. But the skate park was never meant to be a profitable business. Like it was really about supporting the scene and for me to have a place to skate. Because on Friday night at 9 when I shut down the store, me and my friends, we had after hour skate sessions till we wanted to.
Yeah,
and
so
I had my own private skate park. So
does it keep you out of trouble, or does it create a spot where trouble can happen?
Both.
Yeah.
Both for sure, right? Both for sure. For me, like skateboarding for sure changed my life in like so many good ways, and kept me, for sure, like kept me out of trouble. A lot of people I ran with like ended up in tough spots, right?
Sure.
And getting involved on the wrong side of the law and whatnot.
Right.
But I was just, I just want like skateboarding. I just wanted to learn, right? Like the moment I think like when it really clicked for me, it was like the first time I saw an ollie. Like before that, like I was skateboarding and we'd do stuff and it was kind of fun. But from there, like the possibilities that opened up, like I just always wanted to learn like the next trick, right?
Yeah.
So like skate from like 8 to 8 every day, right? Like pre-shop, right? So skateboarding like super good. But then, yeah, of course, like then you have clicks, right? Like at the park, and yeah, then that's unavoidable. I think it was a bit tougher on me. I took it a bit tougher because, your haters are gonna hate, right?
Right.
People are like, oh yeah, Emanuel, look, he's got a skate shop, he's got a skate park, blah blah blah, And but I was always hopeful. Like what got me through the times where I was feeling a lot of hate or some hate, what got me through those times was always like when these kids grow up and they have their responsibilities of their own and they get to understand kind of like the commitment and the investment that I made for my love of skateboarding, all that I can hope for is that they reflect back and they'll be like, oh yeah, that was actually pretty cool what he did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how it turned out. Cause like a lot of the kids that gave me the hardest time, like I know several of them, like, cause my mom was still in Quebec City. They'd bump into my mom and they apologized to my mom.
Oh, wow.
And thank her and thank us for what we had done. So, so kind of what I was wishing for happened,
Yeah, that's dope.
and that's all right, like that's all good.
Yeah, it's impossible for me to imagine my 18-year-old son running a skate shop. You know what I mean? Like just because he's still such a kid to me.
Well, he grew up quickly, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like still a kid. Like I remember like Friday nights when I didn't like, let's say there was there was this girl and I wanted to hook up with this girl and I knew she was going to be at this party, right? And I'm closing the shop and I'm trying to balance, my register and like preparing my deposit because I have to go do the deposit on my way to the party, and like the cash register won't balance and I'm like pulling out my hair and I'm like, come on, I need to get to this party. So, you get through it, and it's fine. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything, right?
Yeah.
Like I learned so much, and I've gotten so much out of it. Yeah.
So what board do you go to the 91 nationals with? I can't even imagine.
What? Sorry.
What snowboard do you?
So that was the first year that I got next year's boards.
Yeah, rad.
So I was riding for the Canadian distributor of Burton.
No way.
At the time, Gilmore Sports.
Gilmore.
Yep.
Was it Rod Gilmore?
Well, I was dealing through the rep.
Yep.
But it would have been Rod Gilmore.
Yeah.
I think that
I think he had a
sounds
son,
right.
Eric too, maybe. Yeah.
I didn't know his son.
I didn't know anybody of any of that stuff. I just want to shout out, like, there was a Canadian distributor at one point.
Yep,
and he
Gilmore
was
Sorts.
he was crushing it, I guess. I mean, he must have been.
Must have been.
Yeah.
So when I went to the 91 Nationals at the lake, I was on the S7E6.
Oh, nice.
It was the first time I had, next year's board like before.
That's sick.
So felt pretty like cool kid on the block,
no
know.
Yeah, Jason Ford talked about the ASMR was going to be his pro model. I think they'd kind of put it out there like, hey, this could be this could really be the next big thing. But I think from that era, they kind of were doing that to everybody. You know what I mean?
Maybe. It's kind of ironic because Jason was such a good switch snowboarder.
Right.
That probably didn't really make sense for him to have that. I mean, he was a sick racer too, right? So that's probably like where that was coming from. But I have like some, like right now, like some pictures burnt in my mind of Jason doing some switch tricks that were pretty impressive. I got to know Jason very well through Salomon, like later in time, and I have so much respect for that guy.
Yeah.
Not only for his snowboarding, but like one of the most business savvy and smart individuals you'll ever meet.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think that comes out of, I'm talking out my ass here, but he being a part of that ride IPO and just having shares in a company when you're that young and then it being worth that much money, you know, there's a pressure to be like, okay, you got to figure your shit out, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're
Jason was always pro. He probably had it figured out before that. That's how he got into that spot.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
but
rad.
so the lake, the 91, so that was the SM era.
Who's at the 91?
I'll tell you the one name that matters.
Yeah.
Kevin Young.
Of course.
That's the first time I ever saw Kevin Young, and no one was even close. It wasn't even close. It was ridiculous. Like I remember like thinking like, oh yeah, like I can snowboard. Then I saw Kevin. Yeah, he was, I remember we had built, or we kind of rolled up to just out of bounds, like on the backside of the lake. There was kind of like a semi-natural quarter pipe that people had kind of dug out. And we rolled up, and Kevin was just crushing it. Like, so that was the first time I saw Kevin Young, and it was an eye opener.
Oh, yeah.
He was so good and such good style. Ross was there, Ross Rabagliati, because I was racing at the time, so I got second in the GS behind Ross.
Wow.
Ross had won the GS.
I think that was that big year for Ross. Actually, he talked about. Like he won nationals, he won a World Cup event, and then he won Baker. Like
would that?
91? Maybe that's too early.
That's too early for him doing good at Baker, I think.
Is it?
Yeah,
it could be.
I think that's a bit early.
Yeah.
Because actually, I think he had never won a World Cup when he won Nagano. Actually.
Oh, yes.
I think that was kind of like the quirk of that. Anyways, but who else?
Well, there would have
Randy
been
Friesen comes to mind.
Friesen,
yeah,
Brad,
he was there. I remember meeting him. And then a bunch of the Ontario dudes. Jake Gunzik. Todd DeCoker was probably there.
Nice.
Yeah,
I remember going to contests where those were the guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I wonder if Kel was there. I know Kel was at the Nationals the year after. I'm not sure if he was at 91, but maybe
that's
Kel.
Early on. Is he younger than us? He's a few years younger.
Yeah. He's probably like 4 or 5 years.
Oh, so he would have been like a little.
He was like a junior.
Yep.
And
I remember the contest in 91 being. It was just, you were still like amazed to see that many snowboarders in one place. You're like, wow, this is incredible. Look at how many people are here.
Yeah, it was sick.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was good times. But I'm
thinking Darren Robinson. Was Darren Robinson one of those guys?
Yeah, Darren Robinson would have been there.
I remember thinking like, oh, Darren Robinson's winning everything.
Yeah, he would have been one of those guys for sure.
Ah, that's rad.
Yeah.
Jimmy Corvesi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you do?
It's funny. I thought of Jimmy. Actually, just when I heard of Marco's passing this week.
Yeah. So that was yesterday or the day
2 days
before.
ago. Yeah.
What a big deal.
And so like hearing of Marco, and because I was involved in 91 Words, right, with David. Like I co-produced that movie with David Benedek, and that was Marco's kind of coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just started thinking about, all the people we've lost. And, I thought of Jimmy. So, anyways.
I say it on the show.
Turn on that. But
a lot. That was the unexpected thing for me. Coming into the show was like how much loss there is.
Yeah.
And tragedy. And there isn't really any professional that's been at it for any amount of time that hasn't had something major happen. It's big. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
Jimmy was early too. Hey, like that. He was young and he was.
Oh yeah,
He was
yeah.
up and coming for Burton. I remember. I remember he moved out west.
Well, that was out west. I think he was probably riding for one of the small Ontario brands at that time.
At that point.
I'm struggling to remember.
Yeah,
but,
I mean that is a very long time ago.
Yeah. But anyways, it's funny because like he was in my thoughts just this week. Yeah.
He was a very sweet dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like the biggest smile and always smiling.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. The scene in those days was really tight knit.
Super tight.
I remember going to Talisman
Yeah.
and seeing people in the hallways, just like it was like the whole place had been taken over by snowboarders. And I'm looking at these guys going, I've seen that guy in concrete powder, you know.
Yeah. It's a small world.
I've heard of that guy. Oh my God, this is so
small
awesome.
World.
Yeah, and it was a pretty fun scene. So how did you do in '91? Did you do all right?
Yeah. So
You got second
in the race and like I forget, like top 10 in the pipe.
So
or
you
something,
probably would have been, because they would have still been doing overall stuff then.
Yeah, so I think Ross won overall, and I was probably like up there around
second or third overall.
Around there. Yeah,
that would have been when I would have first heard of you too, because like that was a big part of the media was publishing results.
Oh, maybe the results.
Right?
Yeah.
And you'd read these magazines cover to cover.
Yeah.
So the results thing.
Absolutely. I remember memorizing all the results.
Yeah. You're looking at the results. I didn't even really compete, but I'm like just looking at names, going, okay, these are the snowboarders in Canada.
But I remember the other thing that stands out from those nationals is that I remember after the race I think was on the Saturday, and then the pipe was on the Sunday, and then it was like awards down at the lodge.
Yeah.
And I remember like we didn't have half pipes. Like back then, like when you had a pipe, like you were excited, right?
Yeah.
Like they were built for a contest, and then they lasted, for like 12 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember like after the contest, like just like I kept riding, and I just stayed in the pipe, and I think it was like just me and I think it was Randy Jesperson, like the two of us. Like there's just like. And it was like the awards were happening, and like so I was like, you need to get down here. But I just remember like I'm gonna milk this, ride this until they kick me out.
I've heard that from Shannon Dunn, because Shannon Dunn was like a competitor's competitor, but she really just loved riding halfpipe. Like
for me,
it.
It was just like there's tranny here.
Yeah.
Like I want to skate it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like you find a perfect pool, right? Like.
Yeah,
I'm skating till you kick me out.
Yeah,
or till I drop.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And Mark Castonguay, he said the same thing.
Mark, he would have been there.
Yeah, would have been that same contest where he's just like, fuck
Mark
the award ceremony. Who gives a shit, right?
Yeah.
Who cares? I'm just riding.
Yeah.
Riding while you can.
Yeah.
Super sick.
Yeah.
So then what happens after you go back? So you're 18, you're doing the skate park. And when does snowboarding ramp up? Like, when does it kind of take
off? It ramp up there, because then I realized, like, oh, like, I can, maybe I can do something with this. But it's more just, like, I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And still, like, I come from a pretty, I hesitate to say poor, but, like, not super well-off, like, family upbringing.
Sure.
And so, like, to me, like, at first, like I was like, oh, maybe I need to snowboard a little bit more, and someone will pay for me to like travel around. So actually, '92 was like probably the year I competed the most, because I set my goals out on winning nationals, and so so that year, just to try to like being from back east in Quebec, right? Like, and I had my shop, so that's where I was. And I figured like that's how to, at that time, like that's how you got on people's radars, right?
Yeah.
So competed a lot, won nationals that year in '92, and I think like that kind of started, like my desire to move out west and just like invest and spend more time in snowboarding, right?
Rad.
At that point, like after Sims reached out to me after the '91 nationals, so they put me on the North American team, which was like a pretty cool thing.
Would that be Malcolm?
Yep, exactly. Oh.
Random. Malcolm, on my mail route where I deliver,
No way.
he just randomly bumped into him and he said,
Oh,
I kind of used to be a
hilarious.
big deal. And I was like,
Yeah.
what, really? He's like, I'm from Nova Scotia.
He
And
was cool.
Yeah.
He treated me good. Like he right away, like he gave me like travel budget as an amateur. Put like on the North American team at the time. I think it was like me, Todd DeCoker, and Al Clark, and Maury.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, Malcolm treated us well.
Sick.
Yeah. So then snowboarded more, and yeah, just kind of decided like, okay, I need to get this show out west if I want to do more of this.
What happens to the shop for that?
So decided to sell the shop. Basically, like this is, I think with technology these days, I would have been able to, manage inventory and run it from far away and all
On
that
your
stuff.
phone. Oh my
But
God.
back in the day,
Yeah.
yeah. So, at the time, like it was more about making sure my mom would get something out of it.
Cool.
So she, like I had been running it on my own for the last 3 years when we sold it. But yeah, we sold it, and unfortunately, like it's kind of a bad story because it didn't turn out good, and we kind of got, not everyone respected their terms of the deal. We'll put it there. I'll leave it there.
That sucks.
And the shop lasted about another year.
Which is as far as it can go with somebody that's...
Yeah. And by that time, like I'd moved out here, out west.
Where did you land out here?
Oh, in Whistler.
Right
Whistler.
away, all the way.
Yeah. I mean, I'd been coming like in the summer by that point, like for 5 years already, like every summer.
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
Wait, what year is this then? Like 94 or 95?
Oh yeah, so this would be first year full time would be 94, the winter 93, 94.
Oh wow.
So I spent all the first I rode spring 93.
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved out spring 93. Then went back east for the fall, kind of took care of the shop and moved back.
This is a good year. That's when I moved here, basically.
Yeah, it was good.
Same. Yeah.
It was good.
September of 93.
Yeah.
And it was a good snow season, and the summer pass at Whistler was only $100 or something after, so like you could just keep the season going.
It was good times, and I hooked up with some really good locals right away that showed me around. Andrew Murphy, Omar Lundy, and Jeff Yoski. And Jeff was working cats at the time already. Sick. Like he was doing night grooming, and those were the guys that taught me everything about the mountain. Like
that's amazing.
Showed me like all the good stuff.
That's a good spot to land with
those
guys.
Yeah. That was like they were my my guides on the mountain. So that was good.
Yeah. So what did you do for work? Did you move out with a bit of cash from the sale of the thing, or no? You're kind of just on your own.
So Limited happened right at that time.
Okay.
And so Perry, that we talked about earlier, that was doing fish lips, he was starting Limited, and he wanted me and Todd to be his 2 Canadian pros.
Perfect.
So he so we chatted. Todd and I left Sims for Limited. And so Limited I didn't need a job. They were providing enough for me to scrape by.
That's so epic.
Like off the hop. And it was a super like rad opportunity because Perry gave us a lot of room for our voices in the company. I don't know if you know this about Todd, but Todd's like a super amazing designer. So he actually designed like all the first artworks.
I can't remember the first ones. When I think of Limited,
the very first ones.
I think of the power band stuff. I'm stuck in that era.
Yeah, way before. It was like a bottle cap, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second after that, there was like a kind of like a rising sun graphic. And
okay,
Todd did a bunch of that.
Yeah. And were they Surf Politics boards?
Yes, they were.
So they're really good boards. They're lightweight. Yep. They're super. Yeah.
I picked up the first correctly pressed Limited board at Surf Politics.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Went out, because this is an East Coast thing. Like, well, you're from the East Coast, but people from the West Coast probably don't know about this. But on the East Coast, like, we'd always start, like, the first time we'd snowboard in the season would be when they started with the snowblowers making snow.
Yep.
And then we'd go and we'd sculpt little jumps, right?
Absolutely.
In the mounds.
Yes.
And the first ever limited ad is off of like
I
a
love
little
it.
mound
I love it.
off
that's
like a
awesome.
snowmaker, because like I went to the factory, got the board, went to Stoneham, and just like dug like a little kicker and shot some photos, because like this was the first ever product like we made,
unbelievable.
and that was our first ever ad.
Yeah.
Off of like a little snowblower like kicker.
That's incredible. So they come out of the press hot. Like, those are good boards.
Oh,
You
yeah.
lucked out with the
So good.
with the manufacturer.
Yeah.
They
so
would
good.
go on to make boards for a
Yeah.
bunch of really, really good, really good companies.
And so there's like 3 guys like back east, like I was talking about, like how I always learned a lot from like the generation before me. And so there's 3 guys that had been snowboarding for a while before me that were they taught me everything I know about snowboarding.
Yeah.
And one of those guys, he was actually one of the designers at Surf Politics.
Oh, no way.
And so he inspired me to learn how to design boards, and that's how I got into board design. So
That's incredible.
So the 3rd year that we were making boards for Limited, I designed every single board, like shape on AutoCAD. I self-taught myself AutoCAD.
Man.
And designed all the boards, and that's how I got really into board design.
Limited was crushing it for a while too. I remember selling it at the shop, and it would sell out. There were good boards, good graphics, pricing was dead on. Like it
was growing well, and we were doing good, and
were
it was
kicking ass.
Yeah, I know. I was stoked to be part of a Canadian company, and trying to, like nudge our way into, like, the U.S. was always challenging, right?
Of course,
but we did well. Like, of course, like at that time, everybody did well in Japan, of course. But like, I'm big in Japan. But yeah, it was fun times, and like learned a lot there too, right? Like, so Perry had a partner, Micah, who is kind of like the finance guy, and the 3 of us basically like did everything.
Yeah.
And then until Matt Houghton joined us, and then he became a lot more involved in all the marketing too.
I didn't
after
know
that.
Matt was there. That's so sick.
So Perry hired Matt to run Vehicle Magazine. Do you remember that?
I mean, I know the name, but I can't.
So it's like a little zine, like a skateboard zine.
Yeah.
And Matt was doing like most of the writing, and that's how I met like people like Derek Catella and Ryan Allen, like the photographers from shooting skateboarding in Toronto, like at that time. And I'd write a bit, like for like just. And,
sick.
And so that's how like the connection with Matt happened, and then when Limited grew to the point where it was big enough to support another employee, like Matt was hired, and he took care of the team and took care of a bunch of like, copywriting for all the marketing material, and it became like 4-man team. I mean, on a company that side, you do everything, like from shipping, receiving to like organizing photo shoots to like, getting catalogs done. But then Matt joined the team also.
So how long does the Limited thing go for? It runs for a solid 6 years or something? 6 or 7 years?
At least. I think what year did we? So we got to the point where, like we needed an influx. Like we got to a point where we needed more money to grow.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like And so I think it was like 99 was when Volant, which is a ski company out of Denver, Colorado.
Yes.
They made the titanium skis.
That's it.
And they bought Limited.
Right. So that would have been, was the power band in there at that time, or was that like once they came in, they're like,
that's once they came in.
We're going to put some metal in these things.
Exactly. So I was working with the engineers at Volant, and we were trying to come up with a way to incorporate their technology into the boards, and that's where the power bands come in.
Yeah.
So I developed that with them.
I feel like
at
I'd
that
be
time.
remiss to get all the way here without talking about the snowboarding that you did at that time. So, because you are getting ads, like you say, the first limited ads on a snow mound,
Yeah.
and you're competing and doing really well on these boards, and there's limited stuff all over concrete powder. And probably some stuff internationally too, right? Like there's,
Oh yeah.
you guys are getting
Yeah.
Trans World stuff,
Yep.
snowboarder stuff.
Yeah.
And taking out ads
doing
too.
good.
Like so,
yeah.
like
Yeah, a bunch of ads.
Yeah.
It's like the company's doing good, and like at the same time I was snowboarding full time, right? Like we're talking about limited, but that was like when I got off the hill, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm a person that's really driven by learning, by progression.
Yeah.
Like that's why skateboarding really stuck with me. Like from day one, we kind of touched on that before. So, like we get home from the hill, and like I'd be like, okay, like I'd start designing boards, and like how can I tweak this, and like I'd be like on the phone with our engineers with our different factories, and be like, okay, like are you like sending me this prototype with like we're gonna try this different layup on the fiber, and like and so that was just, I don't know, it's fun. I found it fun. I found it stimulating and challenging, and kept me going.
Where did you land with fiberglass? What's your layup? Like, because I prefer prefer biaxial just for the type of
you're
riding
taking
that
me
I
back.
do.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's too far away, honestly, for me to geek out completely on it. But like top and bottom, like the way when it cures, it can shear differently. So when you don't, if you have like biaxial on the bottom and triaxial on the top, like it can, that's not necessarily like easy to get it right. But no,
And okay,
wow,
so
that's
also,
like
you also went through. You also went through that era where the surf politics layup was traditional sidewall.
Yep.
And then once cap construction came in, remember how everybody got a hard on for cap construction?
Yeah, that's us. Like, we did the verticap.
Yeah, the verticap. Everybody wanted something cap because it was, well, the torsion box cap, those ride really, really well.
I've never been a fan.
They rail
I'm
really
a sidewall
well.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm a sidewall guy.
I'm still a sidewall
so much
too. Yeah.
to the point that, after when I worked for Salomon, I got them to
You pushed for the sidewall.
come back and do some cap sideboards. Like I remember that because when Salomon launched, right, like the monocoque, and it was such a big deal, and that's like before I was working there. And that, they were hugely successful with that. And I remember like when I started working for them, like riding those boards, and it was just, I didn't really like that feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was pushing our guys, like, so when I started working at Salomon, I was in charge of I was the board product manager. That was my first job there.
Cool.
And right away, like working with our engineers, like I started pushing to, and I still remember to this day the first prototype they made me with sidewalls.
Yeah.
I had to fight so hard, and I remember riding that board, and I was like, because honestly, like our riders were demanding it, right? Like it's not just me like driving this, but it was at the time where like that pendulum was swinging back, right? From cap back to sidewall, and like I could see that coming, and our riders, were definitely like asking for kind of like something new. But I still remember like the first sidewall prototype that came out of the factory, riding it. We were up at Ting. It was in the fall. And I just remember railing on that board, and I was like, yes, this is it.
This is it. We're back.
We're
back.
So like designing boards, like it's always been like, super, super fun for me.
Yeah,
like,
that's an era I completely forgot happened, because everything went cap.
But
within 2 years or
the
something.
verticap was, that was interesting, because like that was directly us trying to, we wanted to continue making our boards at Surf Politics, because in my opinion, they made, if not the best, some of the best boards.
Absolutely.
At that time, like Volcom were making some pretty sweet boards as well.
I'm
But
trying to think, who were the Volcom boards? You
they-
mean the ones that came out from Limited?
no,
Volcom boards?
no, they weren't making boards for us. But
Oh,
I
okay.
remember riding. I think it was like, well, it was a Sims board.
Okay.
But I remember,
Yeah.
like, because I would ride a bunch of different boards just to.
You want to ride
Test,
the best
right?
board, right?
Yeah,
like if
just
you
to
find
test
something
and-
that's better than what you're riding, you're like, we need to do something.
Yeah,
here.
and so I remember riding a Sims board that was made at Volcom
Yeah.
that felt really nice. But anyway, so we wanted to make boards. We wanted to stay at Surf Politics, but because they couldn't make a full cap board, they basically just couldn't with the press setup they had.
Got it.
And we're like, okay, like how are we gonna answer kind of market demands for for this? And so the workaround was like this verticap where you kind of had the best of both worlds, really, because you had like that half cap that kind of gave you that additional torsional rigidity, right?
Yep.
That you would get from a cap board, but you'd still get like that damp feeling from the sidewall when you're edging, right? Because like
Rad.
to me, like that's always been the big difference, like that little bit of absorption that sidewall gives you when you're on edge. Like I've always, you feel that. And anyways, we're geeking out about boards.
I love it because cap fell
Yeah.
away because they were
Yeah.
cheap. They fell apart more, and they didn't offer.
Well,
they broke down
yeah.
a bit more. Like
Yeah.
so, like by the end of a couple of weeks or months on a cap board.
Well, you
they
can't
just didn't
repair
feel
them
the
also,
same.
right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if a cap delams, it's a lot harder
so
to
it was
address.
a flash. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody's cap,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden nobody's cap.
Yeah. But yeah, so no, I was lucky to be able to ride those Surf Politic boards a lot, and they were in my backyard. You know, I'd go to the factory and work with
rad.
them on it.
That's rad.
You know, like Marco, the guy who started it, like he's an OG guy. Like he was like a super rad windsurfer like back in the day, and
Nice.
like he brought kind of like the same type of energy like that skateboarders and snowboarders had, and
Yeah.
he's kind of like a wildcat and like a wild guy, not a wildcat and like in the Wildcats.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
oops, sorry, no copyright.
Yeah, I remember the top sheets. I just remember that texture of the top sheets, like it was like a matte finish. But they just felt really professional.
Yeah.
Like they were really nice on the floor.
Yeah.
When you're trying to sell stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
And the timing was
They were
right,
great.
right? Like the second year we had our boards there was the same year like they had like Ingmar got like that crazy cover shot like on a Surf Politics board,
yeah,
and
right.
like that it was just kind of like
Yeah.
like put them like not that put them on the map, but it was just like validation, right?
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
like that's like still an iconic snowboard image to this day, right?
Oh
Like-
yeah, I see it a few times a year.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw it the
right?
other day.
Exactly.
I was looking
Yeah.
at it going, geez,
Yeah.
it is just so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so out of context for that time
Oh, yeah.
compared to everything else that
Yeah,
was going
it looks
on.
like Photoshop. Someone just like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, I'm gonna put this guy 8-9 feet higher.
Unfucking believable.
Yeah.
Okay, so you compete all the way through to 99, 90, 97. They at,
No, I didn't really compete after nationals.
Okay, when was
Yeah,
it? When was
so
the
90,
last?
like 92.
That's it. Oh yeah, sorry, you
Yeah.
said 92.
Yeah,
That was pretty
so
much it.
after that, like when the World Cup would come to Quebec, like I'd do that. But like I never traveled to compete.
So were
Like
you?
I would do like the Triple Crowns. Like I'd go down to Breckenridge,
Yeah.
like do that. But
Were you
like, it
filming
wasn't
for
full-time.
people?
yeah,
Was
a
that-
little bit. Like this
Yeah.
is like back in the day where, like honestly, like I could spend like 80% of my season just riding.
That's the best.
And so you could still shoot ads like on hill,
Totally.
right? Like,
Right.
And everybody did. Like it was
What
crazy.
was your contract like? Was it like 20 pages or was it a handshake deal?
It wasn't 20 pages, but it was like there was paperwork, but it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like I was working for Limited, right? And I was part of it. So
Yeah.
But it was probably like maybe like double-sided,
Yeah.
like one sheet of paper type of thing.
I love it.
Pretty simple.
That's the
yeah.
best era of snowboarding to be a pro in.
Yeah. But a lot of my other sponsors were like just, like agreements, right?
Who else did you ride for?
So, well, depending on the era, but like I guess like Billabong, Arnett, Dakine.
Wow.
And so, all those guys were, more or less like handshake deals. And
Yeah.
you
Were
know,
you a bit of a jet setter? Like, would you go down to like Hood River and check out the Dakine setup? And
no, I didn't do Hood that much actually. Did a little bit, but you know, like it was so hard to get passes to ride the camps, and
oh yeah, it was expensive.
and
$100 US a day.
Well, like I mean, like I'm not even talking about the lift passes.
Right.
I'm thinking of like when you're on the glacier, just to be able to ride, because like there was no like anything good to ride that was public.
Right.
And so it was only the camp. So if you weren't coaching, so typically what I would end up doing is I'd do like one session where I'd guest coach.
Sure.
And that would just get me a pass into the camp, and then I could ride.
Yeah.
But I remember like that's where I met Tonino. Do you know of Tonino? Tonino Copen? He's like a Salt Lake dude, nitro dude.
Rad.
Super rad guy. But he was like the law for a long time, like on for some of the camps there.
Love
and you just didn't F around, right? Like no poaching. Like
we got kicked out for poaching.
Yeah, you can
it's
really
such
poach.
A bummer.
So I'd stay up here more because it was just more mellow, and you know, here you could ride, and but no, Hood I'd probably do like just 1 week of guest coaching every summer.
It sounded like you went to Blackcomb pretty early on.
Yeah.
Like 89 or something, 88?
89 would probably be the first summer.
Yeah.
So.
And what era is that? That's like Damian Sanders.
Yes.
Time?
That's like when they had the OP Pro.
Yeah.
On the glacier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
But that was crazy. Like that's met like a lot of, like that was the first time I met a lot of like rad Canadian snowboarders, right? That I'd never met. Like, Sean Johnson for sure. Like Nix, Kearns.
Sick.
Like Dev and Browner, that were just like little kids. Little rats
epic.
at that time.
Yeah.
So like it was a super, like maybe not in 89, but like if around then.
Yeah.
Right.
89, 90.
But
91.
the first year I was there was the year of the OP Pro. So whatever that was, that might have even been 90.
No, I think 90 was the year after.
Yeah. So 89. Yeah. But this was like, I was just telling this story to someone like not too long ago, because we're flying in from Quebec, and I was telling the story to someone to explain like how Whistler was back in the day. And I remember the first summer I came, like I had my plane ticket, landed in Vancouver, took a bus, arrived at the bus loop, got off the bus loop, opened the whatever, like the little mailbox where the paper is.
Yeah.
Looked at the paper, looked at the ads, called up. We didn't have a place to stay. We looked at the ads, called up a lady. There was a place to rent. We're like, hey, we'd like to rent a place for 2 months. And she's like, yeah. And we got a place, and that night we were into a place.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Like, that's just crazy, right? To think like that's how it was. Like
you had to look in a paper. That was the thing. I remember.
Well, we rolled up and we had no place, and it literally took us like 2 hours, and we had rented a place for the summer.
That's so sick.
So,
do you remember how much it was? Because
no, I don't.
Yeah, I remember my.
But that was like
place.
straight in the village, across like the Sundial Plaza, and like just.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. But I forget how much.
Yeah.
But started coming really early. A lot of good, like those summers were fun, man.
Yeah.
And that's when like Craig's had his camp, so. Yeah, Ford would have been there, Brushy, Duck Boy, Jacoby, like the whole like Burton crew at the time.
So sick.
Kelly Joe. Ranquet would probably have been around also.
Oh, wow.
Fun times.
Yeah, that's so sick. Those are bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and camp is such a crazy feel. Like, because I don't know about you, but I went to summer camps back in Ontario, and it was like a jail. It was like you were locked into. There was counselors that made sure you were moving from archery to going in the canoe. Like,
yeah, no, I was a street kid. I never got to do camp. My summers were just anything, it was just like, yep. Yeah. The street's your playground. No, we couldn't really afford camps
man.
as a kid. So.
Yeah, so I went to Wendell's, and Wendell's was like you were just free to do whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah.
So then there were street kids there that knew how to do it, and I was like, "Where's our counselors?" Like,
yeah, no,
what
it was
activities
definitely
next?
like freedom.
Cool.
But yeah, so but I didn't do camps. Like the first year that we showed up, we had enrolled in one session of a camp,
Right.
just because we wanted to make sure that we'd have 1 week where we could access a pipe.
Of course.
But we had our own place, and we stayed for whatever, like a month or two. But did that one session. I think like we did the Kelly camp just so we'd have a pipe to ride, because like at that time on the glacier, there's nothing else to ride. If you weren't part
If
of
you weren't in the camp, you're doing moguls or something.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's rad.
but
And then you're also like a full-on skater, so like there's skateboarding in the village. And
Oh
there's,
yeah, skating all the
and that
time.
scene
Like
would have been so good.
yeah, like skateboarding in West was like so fun. Yeah, a lot. And I remember, like the standout, I'm sure for most people around that time was like when Rick McCrank moved to West, right? Like and just skating in the bowl with him every day. Like the guy's such a natural. Like it was ridiculous.
A wizard.
Like,
Yeah.
Every day it was just like he'd find a new way to blow your mind, and he was like I mean, he was Rick, right? Like just so like humble and nice and calm, but like like that was an eye opener for sure. Like in the same way, like some people come along, like I was talking about Kevin Young earlier, right?
Yeah,
like you see someone like the way
those guys are cut from the same cloth, actually, a little bit.
And so Rick was like, okay, this is
Devin's got a bit
special.
of that too, just like so much style, and like he never had a lot to say about anything.
Yeah. There's some people that it just comes naturally. Like I was definitely not that type of person.
But, me neither, dude.
But yeah, Browner is like another guy like that could skate as well as he could snowboard, right? And just like
all
effortless
style.
and flawless and good style.
Rad.
And, but yeah, skateboarding was super fun. Like early days in the bowl, like when we got that first bowl, like that was breakthrough, right? Like there's actually somewhere to go.
That's unreal.
But there's also like I remember one of those summers they had I forget what it was for, but they had a vert ramp set up at the base of Blackcomb, right at the bottom there.
Rad.
I forget, like there must have been like a demo or something that was anyway, so we could skate that also. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah. Good times.
So you're out here full time. We're kind of jumping around, but you're out here full time in '95. Yeah, perfect.
I'm getting thirsty.
I was thinking about him a couple of times. Like, we should probably crack those.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, thanks for getting these, by the way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Superflux, we should shout them out.
Oh, yeah, Superflux.
Who are they?
They started as a nano brewery. So basically these guys that don't have their own brewing facility and just they'd brew some batches out of other people's facilities.
Yep.
I think they started at McAllister and then moved around Strathcona. Anyways, they're on Clark, and they make the best beer in my opinion.
They're really good. Yeah, that's nice.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, when you move out here, 95, you were 93, same.
Around those times. I think so at first I was living with my girlfriend. She was working at the chateau. So I was like doing staff accommodation, illegal.
Yeah.
But then live with Andrew Murphy and that crew for a bit.
Yeah. Andrew and Omar were blowing up hard at that time too.
Yeah, this is the year before Omar had that blow up segment, right? Where he's doing those huge half cabs toe-ins.
Yeah.
And then the year and at that time JF and Gaetan had moved out, but they were living in their van.
Yeah.
And I think the year after that, we all moved in together.
Oh, sick.
And so, that was our crew for a while there. We lived all together.
Wait, is that the 418 crew? Or is
so
that
this
pre?
is before. Yeah,
it's
this is way before. Yeah.
Way before, yeah.
Yeah, so 418 is, that's a whole different thing. But so it was JF and Gaetan and Yann Roy. Remember him?
Yep.
and Martin, who ended up doing a bunch of editing for the Sugar Shack guys. He put all those movies together like afterwards. But yeah, the five of us were all living together.
Was it a bit of a segregation because of the French thing?
No, I think it's just like you connect and I don't know. No.
You guys blended in pretty good.
Because like the year before I was living with like Andrew and Omar.
Right.
Right. And Yannick. Yannick was a Quebecer that lived with Andrew. But yeah, it just kind of happened like that. Yeah.
And then you guys would ride together like
that was, we lived on Squaw Valley Drive, and it was like that, what was it, like that crazy early season, was that 96 or 9? I think it was 96, where it was just puking. Like it was like the best early season
super
ever.
Early.
Yeah, and this is like JF was on Rev.
That was a crazy team too.
Gaetan was starting to like blow up. I think like it was still like probably like pre-Airwalk, so probably Liquid days.
Oh wow.
Jan was on Ride, of course.
Yep.
So yeah, Jan was like the representative of that. So like sick teams, right? Like the Ride team was like crazy, and then the Rev team was crazy, and
unbelievable.
Yeah. And then, but during that time, like that's the time when, I think that's the time when Jeff transitioned to, no, that's a bit later. Rozzy came later. Yeah. So anyways.
Who was he on before? He was on Rev, and then he went right from Rev to Rozzy?
Well, so
pro model?
He almost signed with us with Limited. So
wow.
So like when JF got his first big interview, like when he got the cover of Transpo and he got like his first like interview, it was half. Like half the photos were on a Rozzy and half the photos were on a Limited.
Oh wow.
So he rode Limited boards for like almost a winter. Like that's when Rev kind of fell through.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like we couldn't compete with the money that Rozzy was throwing at him, and I think it was the good thing for him, right?
Yeah,
he did good.
Yeah, I remember him going around a tour bus, and I think Travis Rice was with them and everything. Like, Rozzy was...
Yeah, Travis was riding for them at the time, and
Rozzy was
But
huge.
Jeff got to... I think Jeff helped them a lot for boards. Like, they listened... Like, I mean... How are you not going to listen? He's going to make you listen.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like he was able to get involved with them in a different way, I think, and that was good. But yeah, those were sick days.
So there's a lot going on in your crew. Like there's not everybody's on the same boards or outerwear companies or anything. It's
all different, all spread around.
Yeah.
It was fun, like so much fun. Yeah.
Did you guys film in resort at that point? Or was it like you're saying, you're not really... No.
Well, so that's when that would be around the time, like, I first started using snowmobiles. And, Omar, the first time I went into the backcountry on snowmobiles was, like, Omar had gone, like, twice to Revy to film, like, those first sequences, right? Like, those big half cabs. And he was like, like the terrain out here is insane. So we headed out to Revy and we'd just rent snowmobiles. We didn't own snowmobiles yet at the time.
Yep.
And so we just rent snowmobiles, and that's when it started to shift from off resort. So whatever year that was, that's probably like 95 maybe or 6.
It's pretty early.
Yeah.
It's pretty early on.
Yeah. But yeah, just being in the backcountry there, I think like, for sure, like spending a lot of time with like Gallup was shooting and different filmers, but I have like some good memories of filming with Boyer.
Oh wow,
he was always one of my favorite dudes to hang out with.
What a nice dude.
Yeah.
And another one of those guys with like standout style.
Absolutely.
But he was an era before,
but he paved the way for
100%
for so many people.
Yeah.
Like I always look. There's a few Canadian snowboarders that stand out, and like, you have people like Devin, of course, or Maury, or we talked about Kevin. Like I put John in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's sick. Oh, well, you're in there too, man.
Well, I don't think so, but sure.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, there's an era of Krebs. I was thinking that today. Like, I was like, there is a time where there was a lot of coverage of you. You were a big part of the Canadian scene. And like I say, with the Trans World ads for Limited, like they were a legit company that were in every issue. They had full page ads.
Yeah, I'm
They were
so
making it go.
grateful to having been a part of that era, right, of snowboarding.
Yeah.
Like same with my experience of skateboarding. Like, and not that it's a better era. Like
No,
I look
right.
at, I think there were some lean years in terms of kind of like the scene for snowboarding. At least that's kind of what it feels like for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at like, and not recently, but like, let's say even like the last 10 years, like I love how individuality has come back out in
Yeah.
snowboarding, like
Yeah.
so much, right? Because
Totally.
it got to a point where like it was pretty formulaic and like they're trying to fit people into small boxes a little bit more. But thank goodness snowboarders are snowboarders.
Yeah,
And
totally.
people broke out of those molds, right? And
Yeah.
I love that from of skateboarding now too, right? Like you look like it's just back to its roots in the sense that like you have a skateboard and you skateboard because you love to skateboard. Nothing else matters.
Totally.
Right? Like your style, whatever you're into, however you identify, your race, your religion, your anything. It doesn't matter. And I love that. Like that's why I got turned on to skateboarding and snowboarding, right? Because we're talking about it back in the day. It's such a small community.
Yeah.
You'd see someone on the hill with a snowboard. That person was your friend.
Yeah. Totally.
Like there was no ifs and buts or maybes.
Yeah,
That person had a snowboard. That they were your friend.
Yeah.
Like the first time I was able to be on a resort in Quebec City, there were 5 people snowboarding
5.
total. 5. That's it.
Yeah.
So you're friends with everybody.
Yeah,
at
you know
snowboarding,
everybody,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyways, I
We
love.
talked off mic a little bit about Terrier being right, because at the time, and this is a really cool time to talk about this. So that was what I was trying to say before. 92, you win the nationals. Was it a one and done thing where you're like, you know what, competing, whatever, who cares?
Yeah. So after 92, like none of my sponsors wanted to pay for me to compete.
Oh, okay.
I probably
Okay.
would have tried it.
So if you would have
Because
been, if you would
I
have,
think it would have been
yeah,
fun because
yeah,
like
yeah.
the traveling part of it for
Totally,
sure, right?
Totally.
And so like limited travel budget, like if I can like spend it on time in the backcountry riding POW or to
yeah.
go to a contest,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to a contest.
Right.
So so stopped competing. But yeah, like we were talking off mic a bit earlier, when snowboarding got accepted into the Olympics, you know, with JF, we were living together and we were kind of like, it would be kind of cool actually if we got to go to the Olympics, right? And
Yeah.
like, hey, like maybe we should give it a shot. And to me, like when I was doing, because when I had my shop, I was like in 92, I still had my shop. So I was running my shop full time. I was competing full time, but I was also in school. And
Oh my
I was trying to go to med school.
Okay.
So like when I was in school, like I was focused, right? And in Cégep, there's a sports study program.
Cool.
Cégep is the transition between high school and university. It's kind of like prep college or something like that.
Okay.
And so I was in the sports program
Rad.
in my Cégep. The only snowboarder, needless to say.
Yeah.
But the other people, like I'd come back. Like I remember this conversation I had I was in my chemistry lab, and my chemistry lab partner, he was on the Canadian national development team for swimming.
Okay.
And it's September and first class. And it's like, hey, how you doing? Good. How was your summer? He's like, well, I got up at 5 every morning, swam for 2 hours, hit the gym, ate, took a nap, got up at 4 in the afternoon, swam for 2 hours, hit the gym, went
Yeah.
to bed,
Yeah.
and repeat. And he was like, what did you do? Oh, I went out west, man. Like partied. It was so fun. Yeah, snowboarded on a glacier and just skateboarded, partied. So
Yeah.
why I'm bringing this up is because when the Olympics became a possibility, like some people dedicate their lives
Absolutely.
and so much effort for a small shot at maybe going there.
Yep.
And I figured, we were talking about it with Jeff, like, hey, like, so yeah, maybe we invest 6 months of effort into this.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's give it a shot. So
Go
yeah.
to the gym 3 times a week,
Yeah, so
party only on the weekends.
So yeah, so with Jeff, we kind of set our goals to that.
Yeah.
That summer there was like a national team qualification event on the glacier. Both JF and I made the cut for the A team. It was like a 6-man A team. And then that summer, that fall, we went to Sauce Fe to ride pipe in the fall.
Amazing.
And yeah, that was fun. And then, we both fell short. We didn't make it, but we came close, and
So
it was fun.
you were both the alternates, though, right?
Yeah. So there was a 6-man team, and Canada sent 4 men to the Olympics.
Right.
So yeah, Chucker, Brett Carpentier, Trevor, and I think it was Drew, actually. Drew Glover?
Yeah,
was
that
the
might be
4th
right.
guy? Yeah, Drew Glover.
Yeah.
Was the 4th guy.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So it could have been you and JF if the
Yeah,
chips
no
would have
biggie.
fell a little different.
But yeah, that came up because we're talking about Hawken, right? And
A little bit. Just
how he
about
had
how he
come
was
out
actually
on-
right.
Yeah. So him
Yeah.
being Norwegian, I think he had insight into how the IOC functioned.
Yes.
In a way that, like, Olympics was never like on my radar so much growing up.
Scandinavians give a shit
Yeah,
about Winter
yeah,
Olympics,
yeah.
like big
And at the
time.
time, like, it was a big deal, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for a Norwegian, because he would have, like, he was the clear favorite to win.
There's a
right?
good
Like,
chance he would have won.
Yeah.
I know I've said it before that he wasn't guaranteed. When I said it
No,
with Todd
no one's
Richards,
guaranteed, but
he was winning everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Todd pre-Olympic, like Todd Richards.
Yeah.
Like the guy was a machine. He
Machine.
got into machine mode.
Yeah.
I remember him at the Classic, at the West Beach Classic, the pre-Olympic year.
Yeah.
And he did this on purpose because he was training to do this. He showed up for his contest run without a practice run, like on purpose. Just to prove to himself that if like I don't know, like I'm just interpreting.
Of course.
But like if something happened, and just so mentally he was strong enough that even if he hadn't practiced in that pipe, he could like lay down his run. And of course he
Unreal.
did, because he's Todd Richards.
Yeah, that's so sick.
And that's like, I think, like, had he started doing like those like wet cats?
I think wet cats are right at that,
that
era.
time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was at that time, he was like kind of the ultimate competitor.
He certainly was.
Yeah.
Like he was the only real rival to Terrier at that time. Although I've heard a lot of competitive pipe guys go, yeah, I could have beat Terrier on a good day, you know, bit of back and forth there.
It's funny because I just had this memory come back to me, because the first time I ever traveled to the U.S. to snowboard was back east, and they had the Green Mountain series in Vermont, and that's the first time I saw Todd Richards, actually.
Oh, sick.
Like we're both like Grom amateurs.
Yeah,
Well, he wasn't. I was a Grom amateur. He was already like ripping. But this is like probably like 1990.
Wow.
Or 89. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just had that memory come back to me.
Oh,
like,
that's amazing.
yeah,
That's
like
amazing
the
that
Noah
you went to
Brandon,
it.
Noah Brandon years.
Oh, yeah, Noah Brandon.
Yeah, best style.
That's so sick. Yeah, there was the academy down in, was it in Vermont, or was it, Seth Westcott went there. Mark Fawcett trained there.
Oh, that academy. Yeah.
Jeremy Jones trained there.
Yeah.
And
I think this is a bit before that.
yeah.
But the Green Mountain series, like all the East Coast cats from those days, like they all did that. Like
Brushy
Ford
too. Yeah.
Ford, Jason did that.
Yeah.
Brushy, Todd Richards, Noah.
So is it
anyway.
after the Olympic year, the first Olympics, that you transitioned from like limited to Salomon? Like, is there a couple of years in there, or?
So I never rode for Salomon.
Right.
Like Solomon's just a. Oh yeah, you mean for the
Yeah.
job?
Like, so
Yeah.
did you
So
stop?
what happened is I had 3 bad injuries,
Oh, shit.
like kind of back to back to back type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember the exact single moment when I decided I was not going to be a pro snowboarder anymore. So I think like I had like those injuries weighing on me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'd always wanted to do well at the classic, right? Like,
Yeah.
or whatever, with all the different names that
Sure.
had, like the Sims Invitational or whatever,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah. But the classic was like, it was an international contest.
Yeah, and it was like,
at Whistler.
it felt like the home contest, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, it's the spring and it's season anyways. So yeah, broke my ankle like the day before, like skateboarding, like just so stupid, like like riding well, anyways. And then like hurt my back, did 2 collarbones.
Oh no.
And this all happened like in about like 12, 16 months of all these injuries back to back to back, and like mentally it was just taxing. And I think I was at the point where, you know, like your body's not where your mind thinks it can be. Like your mind kind of sees like where you should be in terms of your riding.
Yeah.
But your body's continuously trying to catch up. And so I was getting a little taxed with that. But it's when Chucker did those double Michael Chucks.
That was a big deal.
I remember like I was like at the because I had hurt myself. I wasn't competing and I was at the bottom. And when I saw that, it was the first time I ever saw one of my peers, like another pro, do something. I was like, okay, I'm not doing that.
I'll never do that.
I'll never do that.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, that's like kind of like if you're a hockey player and you go into a game like and you don't think you can win.
Yeah.
Like, get off the ice.
Why are you
like,
there?
why are you there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I like, and not that I like, there's a lot of really good snowboarders that are doing a lot of really incredible things that I never did.
Sure.
But as long as it in your mind,
Yeah.
like that's a possibility,
Totally.
then you're still in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But that moment, I was like, because that was not only like, it was big. It was really the size.
It was really, really big.
It was really big.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like if I was like 100% right now and like I gave everything I had and I did a straight air as big as I could, I wouldn't go that big.
Right.
On a straight air.
Right.
And that for me was it. And I remember calling my sponsors, and I called my sponsor and told them like, okay, stop sending the checks.
Wow.
And they freaked out. I remember,
shit.
like Randy at the con was just like, are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, like I'm done. He's like, okay. Cause like, you could milk that for a while.
That
right?
never happens. Nobody's ever been on the show before and said, hey, you know what? Then I called my sponsors. I said, yeah, I don't need to be paid anymore.
Well,
like,
I mean,
it's always the other way. It's always like, hey, man, what the hell's going on here? I'm supposed to get a check this month, and they go, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're paid to be a pro snowboarder and you're not going to be a pro snowboarder anymore, like it felt like the right thing. To me. Yeah,
Damian Sanders talked about regretting not doing that because he got badly injured. He knew he wasn't going to do it anymore, and he took checks for like 2 more years.
Yeah.
And it like taxed him mentally. Like he felt like a bit of a fraud, I think, is what he was.
I mean, it's to each their own, right?
Yes.
But what's important is to be at peace with whatever decision that you take.
Yeah.
And
how old were you at that point? Where
27.
You did that? 27 years old.
Yep.
And
27.
It sounds like you'd stopped the schooling to pursue this as a full-time
thing.
I
wasn't I'd finished my CEGEP, but that was it. And so that fall, like I started thinking that summer, like, okay, what's my next step? And I thought about going back to university. Had some ideas of what I wanted to do. Actually, like went to Montreal, visit some professors at McGill that specialize in. I was interested in like a new type of urban design at the time, like just kind of rethinking how we organize cities. I don't know. I read a lot. I'm always reading a bunch of stuff. And at the time I was reading a lot about urban planning and urban design. And so I went to the urban, like I met this professor, like sat down with him, like just kind of get a feel for what was happening. But basically, yeah, explored a bunch of different opportunities that fall. Like one of them was the national team had offered me the opportunity to become the coach.
Very cool.
I was like, okay, like, is that something I want to do? Like Maury and those guys had 4-star at the time.
Yeah.
Like, talked about some business opportunities of maybe working with them.
Cool.
And I had all my experience on designing product, and the Salomon opportunity came up. Actually got connected through Brad Stewart, the founder of Bonfire.
Rad.
And Brad knew Perry because they had been both on the board at SIA for, the snowboard, blah, blah, blah.
Interesting.
And anyway, so like Brad, I think, was pushing for Salomon to hire someone from North America because he felt like they needed a little bit of of North American flavor.
Yeah, because let me just say it about Salomon. Salomon came out too late, kind of like they'd waited too long to get into the snowboarding thing. Rozzy had been in for 10 years already, and Salomon had waited until maybe, I think it must have been 96, 97, 98, somewhere around there. They came out and they were kind of boasting about like, all right, we're the best ski company in the world. It's about time you had the best snowboard in the world.
But that was on purpose.
Right.
Like they didn't come out too late.
Okay.
That was planned.
Okay.
Like Salomon is a company at its roots driven by innovation.
Okay.
And they could have put out a cookie cutter snowboard.
Right.
3-4 years before they put out the snowboard they put out.
Right.
That was part of the plan.
That was the deal.
That was the deal. Like they wanted to come out with something that would shift the market.
Sure.
And it did. Right? Like their board brought in that cap era. For better or for worse.
We tried.
Right?
I remember demoing them at Whistler.
Yeah.
And being like, these ride really well. They did not offer them to the Boardroom like they were doing, like we're going to do, like we're going to back up our good accounts already or whatever. I remember being like, they're too plain. They're too boring.
But that was all out on purpose.
They did ride
like that was the era of like the crazy graphics. And like, it's going to sound like I'm defending them.
No.
Like I wasn't part of the company at that point.
Right.
But I've had because Jason Ford.
Yep.
Like was intimately involved in all that development process of the first boards.
I could see that.
And so we've had a lot of conversations.
His first
about
board
that.
with Ride, right? Like it was like a Jamie Salter company, and they had some graphic designer with like spark plugs and pixelated shitty graphics. And he just sprayed
the
his
hot pepper.
and the hot pepper. Exactly. So he had his board, with gold spray paint on it.
Yeah.
And Salter sees it and goes, well, what the fuck is this? He goes, like, I don't care what graphic you put on it because I'm just going to spray paint it gold.
Yeah.
He's like, well, why wouldn't we do the gold graphic then? And so I can see a direct correlation between the original Ford board, not the cartoon one, but the original Ford board, and there was metal fleck in those amazing.
Oh yeah, like his influence. I know, like on the board development was huge.
I could see that.
And the graphic, like for sure. Like they had like, you have to remember at the time, like the pros that they had developing those boards, like Michelle Taggart, like Jake Blattner. Like they had some heavy hitters.
When was
like
Daniel Frank there? Another year or two later?
Daniel's a bit later.
Okay.
Daniel's a bit later.
Yeah.
He wasn't there like when they launched the boards.
Okay. Yeah.
They signed him after.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so yeah. So for me, like, Salomon flew me out for an interview.
Rad.
Have some funny stories about that.
Where do they fly you to?
So their headquarters are in Annecy, which is 30 minutes outside of Geneva. Mm-hmm. So this is like I did 2 video conferencing interviews in '99.
Whoa.
So I had to book. There's one place in Squamish that you could rent a video conferencing setup.
What?
And so I drove down to Squamish, did like video interviews. So I did the first video interview with the HR, and then the second video interview with the snowboard people. And then after the second video interview, they're like, okay, like we want to fly you out.
Rad.
And they email me like, it's like December like 12th or whatever. And they're like, we want to interview like ideally before Christmas. So I'm like, oh, well, sure, let's go. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they buy me this business class ticket on KLM through Amsterdam. So it goes Vancouver, and yeah, you see where I'm going with this, right? Vancouver, Amsterdam, Geneva.
Yeah.
And so I go to Annecy, do like full round of interviews with all the different heads of departments. Like I'm there for like 36 hours. It's pretty in and out. But everything goes well. I fly back, and the layovers in Amsterdam were pretty short. Like I didn't have time to go to Amsterdam.
Yep.
But I land here in Canada at customs, and I'm like just like a dirt snowboarder, right?
Yep.
And they're like, okay. They pull me over like into customs. Like I get pulled in.
Secondary.
And they're like, oh yeah, business class. So how did you pay for this ticket? I was like, oh, someone bought it for me.
Oh, no.
They're like, yeah, I love the sound of that. They're like, oh, so what were you doing? Oh, I went for a job interview. And they're like, really? And you went through Amsterdam. Yeah, so I got the full search.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was funny. But yeah, so that worked out, and basically we shook hands at ISPO that year. And
which is later in the season, right?
It's in February.
Launch of next year.
Yeah, so they basically like told me like, yeah, we want to hire you, but just to get the paperwork done and everything. So I flew out to ISPO to meet, the rest of the team. And moved to France.
This has to be exciting, right? Because
Super
you're living
exciting,
in Squamish, and what were your job prospects other than this?
I'm living in Pembrey at the time.
Oh, you're living you're living way up in Pembrey.
In Pembrey. But so otherwise, like I said, there was all those other opportunities. I had submitted at the time because I was really thinking about the national team. Like I thought like that would be fun.
Cool.
But the national team at the time was underfunded or not funded and unorganized. Mm-hmm. And I had served as the Canadian coach for the 2 first World Cups of the season that year. Yeah. And it's like they were in Whistler, and it was pretty cool. I was able to I gave like Mikey Renz like a start,
Sick.
Like it's like yeah, Mikey, this is your chance, like
epic.
So I was able like to squeeze in like some kids that I knew like were the like that had like they were the future of snowboarding for us, right? For Canadians. Anyhow, and like I remember the FIS people were like, wow, like what's going on? Like you guys you've never been so organized. Like and that's just like that's kind of how I am. Like I'm just an organized person, I guess. Anyways, so I'd built this business plan that I submitted to Ski Canada, because Ski Canada ran the national team, and I was like, this is my plan. This is what I'll do for you. This is what it's going to take. Because I wasn't going to become like, I wasn't going to try to run that program if it was going to just be shoestring and just like unofficial and just kind of like, So I put a lot of time and effort into building a business plan for them, and never heard back. So
oh no, they're like, not this guy, not this guy. He's too organized.
Yeah, so I don't know, but So Salomon, that was fun. Yeah, so I moved to France, and
through all this stuff, like you moved to Whistler with a girlfriend. Do you wind up getting married and bringing her with you to France, or are there iterations of many other girlfriends?
Yeah, many other girlfriends.
Whistler's difficult on a coupledom.
Here's what happened. The girlfriend I moved out with, I felt like she had committed to me, and I wanted to commit to her. So we decided to move back because she wanted to go back to university.
Okay.
And so we got a place in Quebec. I bought her a car. And then when it came time to move, like, I was like, what am I doing?
I can't leave this.
I can't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Snowboarding's what I want to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I split up,
Wow.
and I chose snowboarding basically, right? Like, remember, like when you were kids, I remember when I was a kid, like girls would always be like, "You're always skateboarding. It's your skateboarder. It's me."
Right.
So, like, she didn't say that, but
No.
that's what it came down to, and
Yeah.
I chose to snowboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no. So I had girlfriends, of course, like throughout. I'm sure they would prefer I don't name them, so I won't name them because like many of them are known in the snowboard world.
Sure.
Yeah, no, just kidding. But yeah, no. So when I moved to Whistler, I did have a girlfriend at the time in Whistler, and that was hard. You know, we tried to make it work, but she had things going on and on her end, and she had her career, and
Yeah.
you know, her snowboard career was taking off, and so yeah, like those are choices you make in life, right? So,
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, nope, didn't bring any.
So you moved to France, and you're
Yeah.
single dude living in France.
Yeah.
Dream job, would you say? Would you call it a dream job?
Well, I'd at this point, like I'd already been in the industry, like not only from like kind of the athlete side, but from the other side for a long time,
So
right?
long. Yeah.
Like both from the shop,
Yep.
with Limited.
Yep.
So it wasn't like you're plopping me into like something
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So was it a dream job? Yeah, it was super fun, but I learned very hard lessons the hardest way that you can. Not to dwell on it, but in a nutshell, like I quickly got some promotions.
Yep.
Quickly became in a position where I was overseeing like people that had been working at Salomon for 20, 30 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Managing like
Yep.
a pretty big team.
Yep.
At the time, our team manager, Will Gilmore, who was a member of the OG Rev team back in the day,
Wow. Cool.
quit. And so I ended up in a position where I was overseeing all 3 product lines, all marketing, and my team manager quit, and I was overseeing all the team.
Holy shit.
And that's way too much.
Yeah. Sure.
But you know, like I'm the type of guy, like you just put your head down and you power through it. And anyways, to make a long story short, I got really sick. I burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
I burnt out and got really sick.
Sorry to hear that. That sucks.
Well, you know, like you learn lessons in life, right? And the lesson I learned there is like sometimes you need to ask for help, right? And I didn't ask for help. I was like, I'm gonna do this all on my
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had to take some time off work and kind of readjust
Okay.
my role, and you know, so like I'm talking about that because yeah, it was like I have so many lifelong friends that I've met, both outside of Salomon in France, but within Salomon also, both riders, but also just my fellow coworkers.
Cool.
That I'm still in touch with, and like I go visit like, you know, every so often in Europe.
Oh, that's dope.
Like really, really cool people were involved in that company.
One of the things that when you were talking about flying back to meet with the professor at McGill, and when you're talking about taking on this stuff at Salomon, and you know, moving quickly ahead of people that have been there a long time, Derek Height talked about it when he went into filmmaking, right? So he gets in there and he's looking around. He's going, "Holy shit! You got a guy who just sets up the lights, and you got a guy who just turns on the lights, and you got a guy who just unplugs the lights."
Yeah.
Couldn't one guy set up and turn on the light and unplug? Who's in charge here? And he would go up to like the producer and say, "Oh my God, you're shooting this from the wrong angle. I can't believe all these people are just standing around and nobody's telling you this should be shot from this, and the lights should be over here, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm zero surprised.
Yeah.
That Derek talked about that way.
And then the producer, most people would never do that, and so the producers would be like, holy shit, we gotta get this guy involved in a little bit more stuff. So I'm seeing the kind of same energy with you, where it's like, most people would apply to read the book. Okay, what's the course at McGill? Okay, I guess I have to do some sort of civic planning. I'll do my bachelor's and then I'll do my underdegree in this and I'll do this and that. You're straight to the source. You're like, I want to do this. What is it?
Yeah,
what's it going to take?
You got to make.
Yeah,
you got to make the system work for you, right?
Right. And that comes from snowboarding. That comes from skateboarding. I think
it's the hustle,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I did the same thing when I chose to go back to university.
This is incredible because how old were you when you decided to go back?
So I'll tell you my first class in university ever.
Yeah.
I'm 35.
Oh,
There's 450 people.
Wow.
In the classroom. It's a first year intro economic course.
Yep.
And one of the first thing the professor asks is okay, so who's straight out of high school? Raise your hand. And 350 hands go up. And I'm like,
uh-oh.
I quit my job for what? And I'm at that point, I'm just oh, was this a mistake?
Oh, wow.
But, two things I want to say to that. One, Derek Height, what a beauty. I remember, because when I started going to Revy, snowmobiling, with Omar, that's when Derek was on Burton at the time. And so Derek was part of our crew.
Cool.
So I did a few drives back and forth to Revelstoke with Derek, and we got to know each other pretty well. And he is one of the smartest individuals I've met. So I'm not surprised that all the success that I hear, we're not in touch, but all the success that I hear that he's having, zero surprise, right? He's always had his game so dialed from day one.
Yeah.
So when I went back to university, I'll tell you this funniest, it's a quick story, but so I did a few undergraduate classes, and then it took me a while because I went back for one. I wanted to become an actuary. That's when I went
don't even
back.
know what that is.
So an actuary is basically someone that calculates probability of risks and determines the price of insurance.
Got it. Cool.
It sounds kind of boring like that.
Sort of.
But I had a vision of what you could do outside of insurance. Just if you think of this atmospheric river that we're experiencing right now.
Yep.
And the chaos that it has caused, right? There are models that can help you predict probability of risk for things like that, right? And I was just interested in probability of risk, right? I feel life is, there's so much uncertainty in life, right?
Yep.
And putting a number on that is something I was interested in. Anyways,
sure.
I'm not gonna geek
cool.
out too much.
No, it's cool to see you light up. It's rad.
So when I went back to university, that was my original plan. I kind of took a few classes in economics, and I was like, whoa, I can actually try to answer these same problems, but with a human element. And after taking a few classes, undergraduate classes, I was like, okay, I was looking at the number of credits you need to get an undergraduate degree and the level of the classes. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a great waste of my time. I need to get to graduate studies ASAP.
Wow.
And so I read through the bylaws of the university.
Nice.
And found this one clause that says that you can be accepted into graduate studies without an undergraduate degree if you're able to demonstrate equivalency, basically.
Sure.
So I'm like, I can do that. I have tons of life experience. Oh yeah, nailed it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going for that. So I set up an appointment with the dean of our department, knock on his door. He's like, yeah, what's up? I was like, hey, Mr. Andofato, like, here's my plan. Like, I want to get into the master's degree. I don't have an undergraduate degree. I think I'm wasting my time. He's like, oh, I'm interested. Tell me more.
Nice.
And so basically, I don't have an undergraduate degree, and they accepted me straight into the master's degree.
Come on.
Yeah, and he was like, okay, like we chatted for 2-3 minutes. He's like, okay, what classes have you done? Like, what grades? And I was just, good grades. And he's like, okay, do these 3 courses, and if you get an A average in these 3 courses, I'm gonna accept you. Like, we need to, like, he's like, it'll have to be approved by different levels.
Yeah.
But basically, like, I'll get you in. And I hadn't talked about anything about me yet, right? Like, I had my whole spiel, like my speech prepared, like why.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're good? I'm like, I guess. And I'm like, don't you want to know, like what I bring to the table? Like, what's...
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah. What was your job title? And I tell him my job title. He's like, yeah, sounds pretty good. That was it. That was it. But I was lucky, right?
Oh,
I was lucky in the sense that
yeah,
I knocked on the door of someone that liked the fact that I was thinking outside the box.
Totally.
Right? He's like, this guy is a go-getter, and right? Like, he's like, if he has the drive to come do this, like, he'll get through that program.
That's
right?
crazy.
And so that kind of...
That's awesome.
So,
you know what? You're reminding me that, because as a dad, I was also very motivated. I'm not as organized. Definitely, that's not my mode. My mode is like chill. Like, I want to have the path of least resistance, the most fun.
Yep.
But at a moment in my life, and it's kind of one of those magic moments where fate intervenes somehow and you can't explain it. I was thinking about being a physicist, and I was like, I want to be a physicist.
Nice.
I just like physics. That's cool. And I looked up in the sky, and the biggest shooting star I've ever seen in my whole life goes like as far as you can see from one horizon to the other. And I'm like, I think that's a sign.
Probably.
So I went to the physics department.
Yeah.
First of all, I applied for mature status. I just did.
Yeah.
And I looked, and I put my half-assed kind of shit in, and I didn't hear back. And I went to the physics department at UBC, the dean of physics, and I got a sit down with him. And he looked at me from the other side of the table and just said, well, what is it you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, work at a particle accelerator, do some cool math shit, like, I'm like, I like physics. He's like, he looked me straight in the eyes. He goes, this is a young man's game. There are people that join as mature students that can't keep up to kids fresh out of high school that are partying every day. You have to understand, it's a frustrating, brain-breaking thing. Physics isn't easy. He goes, but if you want a job, can you do AutoCAD? And you mentioned AutoCAD before. And I was thinking, I said, I don't, but I could learn it. I just know I could teach myself. And I called Jim Barnum, who uses AutoCAD to do Spectrum.
Yeah.
And I said, can you teach me AutoCAD? He goes, yeah, for sure. And the dean says, I'll give you a job tomorrow. Sweet. I've got these 3
he saw you had the drive, right? Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I really want to get into the program, though.
Yeah.
Like, I just was stuck by my own thinking that I wanted to be a university grad.
Yeah.
I didn't just want to quit the snowboard shop where I was working and work at some other place where I was some guy. I should have taken the job. I mean, there was a shooting star involved.
Yeah, exactly. That was the sign.
Yeah. But university professors, in my limited experience, they do want to see that spark. They do want to see that you're there, not because you're trying to impress your dad, but because you're interested in the shit that they're trying to teach people.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if you're passionate about anything, right?
Like, as a team manager, of course, would you? You're not going to get somebody
as a parent.
Yeah, as a parent, right? Yeah.
Like the only thing, the thing I wish the most for my daughter is that she finds something she's passionate about.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, if my daughter can find something that I was as passionate like a skateboarding where like
Right.
like you can work on like learning a trick for 6 hours straight,
God.
and you're like, did 2 minutes go by?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like that's a gift.
yeah, it is.
That's the gift to
It's a
like,
huge gift.
and so like, like you just hope for people to find their own, right?
yeah.
Whatever that may be, writing poetry or like planting a garden or taking whatever it is.
Anything.
But unfortunately, I'm sure you've witnessed that as well. Like so many people don't find that in their lives. And that's sad.
99%,
That's sad,
it feels like.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
sad. Like I
Yeah.
feel so fortunate.
Yeah.
I found it with skateboarding.
Yep.
I found it with snowboarding.
Yeah.
I found it right now with my academic career, like with my research. Like it's like I feel so fortunate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're living in a truthful, passionate way. It's my greatest fear that my kids don't find something that they're passionate about. And
I
watching
hear ya.
them and supporting them in whatever endeavor that they're doing.
Yeah.
I find it even with relationships, if they're trying to get into a relationship, it's just so fun to watch that happen and be like, oh, is this going to be?
Is this the one?
They're falling
Is
in
this it?
love.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's so sick.
Yeah.
And really, the passion you're talking about is falling in love with life.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
for carpentry. I did my training. I graduated
Yeah.
at the top of the class. I got a job right out of school. And I got out there and I was like, this is what we're doing? Oh, I fucking hate this.
Yeah.
There was a day that I was at work that I packed up my tools and I went home at the end of the day and I got in my car and somebody came running out and they're like, where are you going? And I was like, I'm going home. And they go, it's first coffee break. It's 9:00. You've been here for 1.5 hours.
You thought that was it.
I would have sworn on oath that I'd
Ouch.
been there 8 hours.
Ouch. Yeah.
And I went back to my job at the snowboard shop.
Yeah.
And time started passing quickly again.
Yeah.
And I talked about snowboarding.
Yeah.
And I went snowboarding and I learned about what's coming out. What's Limited got? What the hell's a power band?
Yeah.
Like
You gotta
Yeah.
be true to yourself.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You gotta be true to yourself.
Well, I found
in
it
that
on
sense.
here in snowboard podcasting 100%.
Yeah.
Like the idea that there's someone like yourself that's got such an incredible story out there that you've got a whole new incredible story. When I Googled you, like you're doing well with your academic stuff. Like,
Yeah, it's again, like I feel privileged to have the opportunity to do this.
Right.
And it's like to me, like I'm the same kid trying to learn a 3-flip
sure.
in front of my house for 6 hours.
Yeah.
But now it's not a skateboard trick. It's a new method that involves a lot of data that's going to help answer a policy question that I can, help the Ministry of Health here in British Columbia or the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions.
Well, that's big.
To provide better services and maybe, reduce the risk of some people experiencing fatal overdose, right? Like a lot of my work has to do with the overdose epidemic. And like I take it very seriously because literally people's lives are at stake. But I'm still that kid just like that. It's the drive to try to, now it's not landing a trick. It's like finding an answer. And in science, you never find an answer. Like you just find like 10 new questions. But hopefully like that with every iteration, like the picture becomes a little bit clearer. And so, yeah, like I have that same passion in my work today. Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I just listened to Joe Rogan yesterday. I go on and off on that show. Like sometimes it's silly and sometimes it's really enlightening. He just had Tristan Harris on. Sorry, he's a guy who does...
I'm not sure, no. Yeah.
They were talking about the proliferation of this, what I think they were calling the third generation of artificial intelligence, which is like big data, like artificial intelligence designed by artificial intelligence to be more efficient at looking at data. And they were saying the scary thing is with no regulations on how we got here, so Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these these things that take your data and know more about you as an individual than you know about yourself, they're not coming up with outcomes like what you're talking about, like saying, hey, you're at risk for this, you're at risk for that.
I mean, there are huge ethical implications to the use of AI.
Yeah.
It's largely unregulated.
That's the scariest part.
I'm not going to sit here and say I have the answer, but it's something we absolutely need to be aware of.
Feel better if I knew someone like you was working on it.
Well, I mean, I incorporate AI in my work.
Cool.
So I'm currently doing my PhD, and my PhD is a joint PhD in health sciences and computing science.
Wow.
So I'm working on deep learning and machine learning applications in the context of my work. And it's, but what we need to be aware of is that often a lot of not all, but a lot of the biases or the ethical considerations that are going to be incorporated into AI are because of inequities that exist in society before data is created, right? So let's say like I would be in the US and I would use US data for some type of application for health. Mm-hmm. There's a correlation with access to healthcare and socioeconomic status. And there's a correlation between socioeconomic status and racialized minorities. Oof. And so, the algorithm that I'm going to develop is going to be influenced by the data that it's fed.
Right.
But the data that it's fed is not necessarily going to be representative of the equitable society that we aspire to.
Right.
And so all of these things need to be taken into consideration when these are developed by like Facebook or Google with a profit in mind.
Right.
They don't care about that, right? Because like that's about predicting, the metric that's going to generate the most ad revenue. And that's a scary thing. It's funny you talk about Joe Rogan. Like I don't listen to him.
I don't blame you.
But
a lot of people don't.
But one of my favorite, like his podcast with Elon Musk, like the famous one where Elon like smokes with him.
Some weed. Yeah.
Like that one was like a fabulous one to me.
Isn't it straight talk about like the real fear of AI?
And Elon is like, the way he talks about it there is very lucid, right? And he's like, I'm trying to make people understand, but they won't listen to me. Right? Yeah. But like anything, a technology is a tool, and it can be used in good ways or in bad ways.
Well, the way they were talking about it was essentially we have, I'm going to get this wrong, but prehistoric emotions, and we've got medieval infrastructure, and we've got godlike technology, right? Like we're still locking people in cages.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
that's an interesting.
We're still making a lot of our decisions with our lizard brains. Yeah, and we've got this technology that, I mean, if there's something out there that knows more about me than I do, and that's not hard. That wouldn't be hard to do.
Yeah,
I haven't spent a lot of time figuring out myself.
We can't fall into the position of like fearing the unknown.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
There's no fear.
Yeah. So AI is not like it's not like this black box that's going to take over the world. We're very far from.
Not that
human thinking technology.
Totally. But and for years I've said this to friends. I've never said it on the mic before, but I think it just seems so straightforward that the kind of technology that we have for profit, we should also just be incorporating into our not-for-profit government. Like, so if you want to actually vote on an issue, then the issue should be transparent. And they're doing this in Taiwan, they were talking about. So what they do is they identify issues where people are divided the most.
Okay.
And then they take the two groups and they use technology to find where they have some overlapping.
Some common ground.
And then they start at the common ground and they try and work out from there. And in that way, they come up with solutions that are, democratic in ways to solve problems. I mean, so I was saying 10 years ago, look, if you had a phone where, your obligation as a democratic citizen was, you have to go on your phone 10 minutes a day and you got to vote about the things around you. Do you want to fix a pothole? Do you want to fix a school? Do you want to tear down the school? Do you want to put up a community garden? Whatever. So you got to go 10 minutes a day doing it. And then there's random checks that if you don't vote the same way, they're like, hey, you're not an active participant in this thing. You're suspended. You know what I mean? I mean, it sounds like 1984 or whatever, but I'm talking about, affecting change. Because when I vote for some person, I don't know anything about them. I have no idea.
Voting is complex. Voting is complex.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think, I don't know. Yeah.
It's a
big
concept.
Me a lot to think about there.
It's a big concept for sure.
But, in simple terms.
Yes.
My training, my fundamental training are kind of like my framework on which I see the world as an economist, is that people respond to incentives, right? And too often why politics is messed up is because incentives are misaligned between individual incentives for politicians and incentives that may be better for society as a whole.
Absolutely.
And structurally, right, from an institutional standpoint, if you're able to make institutional changes that can align those incentives, then I think you can have people in positions of power that take decisions that really lead to the greater good. But very often, those incentives are misaligned, and at the other end, it's just another human being, right? It's like you and me clicking in the office, right? Like some good days, some bad days.
Yeah, man.
But the decisions are more consequential sometimes.
Well,
right?
yeah, of course.
So.
Well, my experience in life is that, I mean, I'm stuck in this meat suit with one consciousness. I can only I can't even imagine what you're thinking right now. You know what I mean? I can't even imagine what I'm going to say in a second. It just all comes from some weird spot that I don't know.
A stream of consciousness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But in making decisions, true democracies that I've seen, oh man, now I sound like a communist or something. But anytime I'm in a real democracy where one vote gets you one thing, you know what I mean? And I'm talking about the co-op where we're in the basement of right now, and the last one I was at. It selects for loud voices, not for the common good, and it doesn't select because the people that have the best ideas typically seem to be introverts.
So, okay. So here's an interesting thought. So I am going to be teaching my first university class in January.
Rad. Can you sneak me in?
And
Can I sit in the back?
And so why I'm bringing this up is because I'm going to bring this, like how technology can be used in constructive ways, right? So too often, in the same way of the example you just used, where it's kind of the loudest voice that kind of runs the show, too often in classrooms, when you try to engage students in active learning activities, right, you'll have like the few that are not shy to speak up. It's always going to be the same. And so like I've been preparing this fall for that class, and I have different technological solutions that I'm going to try in the classroom so everybody has a chance to express themselves, right? And they can do it in a way that's sometimes, anonymous. And that, what everyone is saying and sharing can be viewed real time by the class. But, they're going to do it through their phones because, everyone comes to the classroom with their phone.
Yeah, man.
And I'm hoping in that way that, it gives a greater opportunity for everyone to be heard. And in the context of learning, hopefully that everyone engages more with the material and everyone leaves the class with, more. But
it changes the dynamic of that.
But my
class.
point, the big
That's
point
rad.
is that, again, technology, right, can be used, can lead to good outcomes.
And it
right?
should.
But
I
it's
mean,
not,
if we were-
technology in itself is not necessarily good or
Right.
bad.
Yeah,
It's how you
yeah.
use it.
But it should, like the metrics it should be held to
Yeah.
is, okay,
Is this a
everybody-
snowboarding
Yeah,
podcast,
this
man?
is a snowboarding podcast. Yeah, no, it should be that if you and your 12-year-old daughter and your partner all have phones, then those phones should be adding to your life as a family.
Yeah.
I mean, it should. If everyone in your society has phones, then it should be adding to the overall positivity of this society. Traffic should be moving better. It shouldn't be more mad people. They're failing.
Yeah.
Our technology is failing us right now.
I don't have the answer to that.
but I think that what you're talking about with including everybody in the class, encouraging quieter voices. I tell you another tangent here that's not snowboarding, but Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, he talked about instead of nominations, anyone who wanted to be class president at this school, they just reached in, they just put their name in the hat. Everybody who wanted to, anybody.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, it was just a draw. There was like
Just random.
You pick out the thing and I'm the president.
Yeah.
Because that encourages kids who aren't performative
Yeah.
to get into a job that's not out in the general public anyways.
Yeah.
You're making
and it's
decisions.
not just a popularity
Yeah,
contest.
It's not a popularity contest.
Yeah.
And then he said, would this work for the president of the United States? You go, well, hold on. First thing it selects for is already it's a 50% chance it'll be a woman. Second of all ethnic minorities are completely represented at exactly the right amount that they should be represented. It like or do we want a blowhard? You know what I mean? We want a popularity contest.
Oh, in terms of socioeconomic status, also it opens a lot of doors.
100%.
Yeah. That's
So
an interesting thought experiment.
it's kind of fun, right? So I think what you're doing with your class, it sounds like something along that same lines. I'm always super excited about good ideas, right? And I mean, that was one of the things in snowboarding was, you talked about having, wanting to learn about the past. I've always wanted to just learn what's going to be next. Like, step-ins. Like, I really fell for that one. Cap boards. I fell for that one, too.
Yeah.
I was probably riding cap board with step-ins while you were like, God damn it, we got to get sidewalls back,
Yeah.
And snowboarding was really, really exciting about that. I don't feel like there's been something, that's totally changed the game for me in snowboarding for a long time. Now I've got this sled that you might have seen out there in the parking lot. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But I really needed to get my head out of my ass about it. And Mikey Rentz actually, through Mike Cicerelli, was saying, like, you got to enjoy the moment you get in your truck to go snowboarding to the moment you're home.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas
sure.
I was enjoying the turns, and I was enjoying the snowboarding.
Oh, it's too little.
And
otherwise.
I was hating everything else.
It's too little.
Yeah.
That's
my goal,
that's a good approach because I definitely not being able for myself to enjoy like the door-to-door experience as you describe it right now definitely keeps me off the hill sometimes.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm picky, right? Like I've had a lot of good days.
Hell yeah.
If it's just going to be like 2 hours in the car both ways, that's 4.
Yeah.
Like let's say up to Whistler from here.
Yep.
That's probably fair game, like with traffic and parking and
absolutely,
and then lift lines, right? So this fall, I'm taking with my daughter and my partner. I'm getting them to do an AV1 course.
Fun.
I've started taking them in the backcountry.
Amazing.
Because, like, when we talk about that enjoyment of door to door, I find it more enjoyable if I'm on my split board, kind of earning my turns.
Sure.
Because that time, like, I'm not frustrated because I'm standing in line. I'm teaching something very incredibly beautiful to my daughter. I'm with the whole family.
Yep.
So it's funny, this week I just got there I just got like their peeps and their probes and
Oh,
their
wow.
shovels delivered at the house.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to be doing the Abbey course with them like right before Christmas. And she's like, it's going to be small steps, right? Like, but
Absolutely.
this is an investment in my relationship with my daughter where, when she's going to be like 18 or 24 or 30, like maybe it's like, you know what? My time with Pops is like a day in the backcountry. Like, how awesome would that be?
Oh,
right?
the best.
So,
Good. Yeah.
but that's my attempt to try to enjoy it more door to door. Because if I'm driving to wherever the trailhead is that I'm gonna skin up from,
Yeah.
I know just that time in the car, I'm gonna be in a better mood than if I'm driving knowing that I'm just gonna go wait 90 minutes in line to get the first gondola, right? Like, and that's just kind of where I'm at. That's just me, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
But yay, Mikey. The wisdom of Mikey.
He's so smart, dude. Yeah, that coming through.
But he's got it figured out in
he's got it
terms of
figured out.
enjoying life.
Absolutely.
Like, no
And he's
doubt.
just had a
Big shout out.
kid.
Big
Yeah,
shout out
yeah.
there, right? So, love
he's
that kid.
rad. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah, it's a good place to end it on. Mikey Rents. That guy's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being my guest on the show, man.
Well, thanks for having me. That was super, super interesting conversation. And thanks
Yeah.
for your patience and
Oh,
hounding me
dude, of
down
course,
and
totally
getting
worth
me
it.
at the table.
Totally worth it. Totally worth it. We'll have to get some turns in this year for sure.
That would be fun.
Yeah. And I have, because I've got boots on the ground at the local mountains, I've got a couple of tricks around town where you can actually have a pretty fun day without any waiting and get out of there before everybody says they do. I'll bring you up. I've got passes for
Proofs
you
in the
too.
pudding.
Yeah.
I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll have some fun, and you'll be
absolutely.
back home with your kid by noon. You know what I mean?
Sweet.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Sick, dude. Thanks. FNRad shoutouts this week to Senior Health Economist Emanuel Krebs for sharing his amazing life story with us. Special thanks to intern Josh and Rob Dow, who are quietly working behind the scenes to manage the social media and YouTube channel. Go and subscribe today and follow us at FNRad Podcast on Instagram. I really hope you're getting epic snow wherever in the world you live. And be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.